In the grand tapestry of ancient civilizations, some names echo through the corridors of time with thunderous recognition. We speak of mighty Egypt with its towering pyramids, of Babylon with its hanging gardens, of Greece with its philosophical giants. Yet there exists a civilization that once stood as equals to these legendary powers, a people who commanded vast territories and shaped the course of ancient history, only to vanish so completely that for nearly 3 millennia they were little more than shadows in dusty biblical texts. These were the Hittites, and their story represents one of archaeology's most remarkable resurrections. Welcome back to Obscure Historiesa, where we uncover the forgotten chapters of human civilization. Today, we embark on a journey to rediscover a lost empire that once controlled the crossroads between Europe and Asia, whose kings negotiated as equals with Egyptian pharaohs, and whose armies carved out territories stretching from the Black Sea to the Mediterranean. The Hittites built sophisticated cities in the harsh Anatolian highlands, developed complex legal systems, and left behind thousands of cuneiform tablets that would revolutionize our understanding of ancient languages. Their disappearance around 1180 BCE was so complete that until the late 19th century, scholars questioned whether they had ever truly existed at all. The story of the Hittites begins not with their own voices, but with whispers from their contemporaries. Ancient Egyptian monuments bore strange references to a powerful northern kingdom called Khita, while diplomatic correspondence spoke of treaties with mysterious Anatolian rulers. The Hebrew Bible made scattered mentions of Hittite peoples, but these references were so brief and seemingly contradictory that many scholars dismissed them as later fabrications or confused memories of minor tribal groups. For centuries, the Hittites remained ghosts, haunting the margins of ancient history, their true significance lost to the passage of time. The resurrection of this vanished civilization began with the methodical work of 19th century archaeologists and linguists, who refused to accept that such a consistently referenced people could have been mere fiction. The breakthrough came when scholars began examining cuneiform tablets discovered at various sites across Turkey and Syria. These tablets, written in an unknown language, contained tantalizing clues that suggested the existence of a major Bronze Age power that had somehow been erased from historical memory. The quest to decode these mysterious inscriptions would lead to one of archaeology's greatest triumphs and reveal a civilization whose sophistication rivaled any in the ancient world. What emerged from decades of painstaking excavation and linguistic analysis was the portrait of a people who had occupied a crucial position in the ancient Near East for over 4 centuries. The Hittites, as we have come to know them, were not merely another small kingdom competing for survival in the violent Bronze Age world. They were builders of one of history's first constitutional monarchies, innovators in metallurgy and warfare, and diplomatic pioneers whose peace treaties established precedents that influence international law to this day. Their capital at Hattusa was a marvel of Bronze Age urban planning, featuring massive defensive walls, sophisticated water management systems, and temple complexes that rivaled anything built in contemporary Egypt or Mesopotamia. The geographical setting of Hittite civilization was as challenging as it was strategically advantageous. Unlike their contemporaries in Mesopotamia or Egypt, the Hittites did not benefit from the fertile floodplains of great rivers. Instead, they built their empire on the harsh Anatolian plateau, a land of extremes where scorching summers gave way to bitter winters and where survival required constant adaptation to an unforgiving environment. This highland region, crisscrossed by deep river valleys and dominated by barren steppes, might seem an unlikely foundation for a great civilization. Yet it was precisely these challenging conditions that forged the Hittites into formidable warriors and innovative administrators. The Anatolian Plateau's central location made it a natural crossroads between the civilizations of Mesopotamia, the Aegean world, and Egypt. Trade routes carrying precious metals, exotic goods, and revolutionary technologies passed through Hittite territory, bringing wealth and cultural influences that the Hittites absorbed and transformed into something uniquely their own. The region's abundant mineral resources, particularly its copper and silver deposits, provided the economic foundation for Hittite power. These metals were not merely sources of wealth, but the raw materials for the bronze weapons and tools that gave the Hittites their technological edge over many of their neighbours. The harsh climate and difficult terrain that characterized much of Anatolia created a people accustomed to hardship and conflict. The Hittites developed into skilled warriors partly out of necessity, as survival in their homeland required constant vigilance against both natural disasters and human enemies. The river valleys that cut through the plateau provided pockets of fertile land capable of supporting dense populations, but these oases of prosperity were separated by vast expanses of difficult terrain that made unified control a constant challenge. It was this fragmented geography that initially gave rise to the numerous small city-states and kingdoms that dotted early Anatolian history. The process by which these disparate Anatolian communities came together under Hittite rule represents one of the most successful examples of state-building in the ancient world. Unlike many empires that expanded through pure military conquest, the Hittites developed sophisticated systems of diplomacy and administration that allowed them to incorporate diverse peoples while maintaining relative stability. Their success lay not in crushing local traditions, but in creating frameworks that allowed different groups to coexist while contributing to the broader imperial project. The linguistic landscape of early Anatolia was as complex as its political geography. The Hittites themselves spoke an Indo-European language that they called Nesili, named after the city of Nisa, where they may have first established their power base. However, the broader Anatolian region was home to speakers of numerous languages, including Hattic, Hurrian, Luwian, and Palaic. This multilingual environment created both challenges and opportunities for the emerging Hittite state. The adoption and adaptation of cuneiform writing, borrowed from Mesopotamian traditions, allowed the Hittites to create administrative systems capable of governing this diverse population while preserving important cultural and religious traditions from various groups. The rediscovery of Hittite civilization in modern times represents one of archaeology's most dramatic success stories. For nearly 3,000 years after their disappearance, the Hittites existed only as mysterious references in ancient texts and as the creators of massive stone monuments whose builders had been forgotten. The breakthrough came in the early 20th century when archaeologists working at the site of Boğazköy in central Turkey uncovered what would prove to be the ruins of Hattusa, the great Hittite capital. The discovery of thousands of cuneiform tablets in the royal archives provided scholars with an unprecedented window into Hittite civilization and sparked a new field of study that continues to yield remarkable insights. The decipherment of the Hittite language stands as one of the greatest achievements in historical linguistics. When Czech scholar Bedřich Hrozný first proposed in 1915 that the mysterious language found on the Boğazköy tablets was Indo-European, many of his contemporaries were skeptical. The idea that an Indo-European language could be found in ancient Anatolia challenged existing theories about the spread, Hrozny's careful and development of this language family. However, analysis of grammatical structures and vocabulary gradually convinced the scholarly community, and subsequent research has confirmed that Hittite represents the earliest attested Indo-European language, providing crucial insights into the development of this influential language family. The implications of this linguistic discovery extended far beyond academic curiosity. The recognition that Hittite was Indo-European suggested deep historical connections between the Anatolian region and the broader Indo-European world that had previously been unsuspected. It also provided scholars with a new tool for understanding the early development of Indo-European languages and cultures. The Hittite tablets contained not only administrative records and legal documents, but also religious texts, historical narratives, and literary works that illuminated aspects of ancient Indo-European culture that had been lost in other traditions. The political organization of Hittite society reveals a sophisticated understanding of governance that was remarkably advanced for its time. The Hittite kingdom operated under what many scholars consider the world's first constitutional monarchy, a system in which the king's power was limited by established laws and customs, rather than being absolute. This political innovation arose partly from the practical necessities of governing a diverse empire, spanning multiple ethnic and linguistic groups, but it also reflected distinctively Hittite approaches to authority and legitimacy that differed significantly from contemporary monarchies in Egypt or Mesopotamia. The role of the Hittite king combined secular and religious authority in ways that were both similar to and different from other ancient Near Eastern monarchies. Like Egyptian pharaohs, Hittite kings served as intermediaries between the human and divine worlds, responsible for maintaining the favor of the gods through proper ritual observance. However, unlike their Egyptian counterparts, Hittite kings were not considered divine during their lifetimes. They achieved deification only after death, and even then, their elevated status was seen as a reward for faithful service, rather than an inherent quality of kingship itself. This distinctive approach to royal authority had profound implications for Hittite political development. Since kings were not considered inherently divine, their legitimacy depended more heavily on demonstrated competence and adherence to established customs and laws. This created a political system that was more responsive to noble and popular opinion than many contemporary monarchies, but it also made succession crises more frequent and potentially more destabilizing. The Hittite solution to this challenge was the development of increasingly sophisticated legal codes and administrative structures designed to ensure smooth transfers of power and maintain governmental continuity. The economic foundations of Hittite civilization rested on a combination of agriculture, animal husbandry, craftsmanship, and trade that was carefully adapted to the challenging Anatolian environment. Unlike civilizations built around major river systems, the Hittites had to develop agricultural techniques suited to highland conditions and irregular rainfall patterns. They became skilled in dry land farming techniques and developed sophisticated methods for managing water resources in their urban centers. The famous spring-fed water systems at Hattusa represent some of the most advanced hydraulic engineering of the Bronze Age world. Animal husbandry played a crucial role in Hittite economic life, providing not only food and raw materials, but also the foundation for their military superiority. The Hittites were among the first peoples to make extensive military use of horses and chariots, innovations that gave them decisive advantages over infantry-based armies. The breeding and training of war horses became a specialized craft, and Hittite horse training manuals represent some of the earliest technical literature in any Indo-European language. The integration of pastoral and agricultural economies allowed the Hittites to maintain large populations in their urban centers, while also supporting the mobile military forces that were essential to their imperial expansion. The sophistication of Hittite craftsmanship extended far beyond military applications into realms that would influence artistic traditions for centuries to come. Archaeological evidence reveals a civilization that prized technical excellence and aesthetic achievement in equal measure. Hittite metalworkers developed advanced techniques for working with copper, bronze, silver, and gold, creating both functional items of extraordinary quality and decorative objects that ranked among the finest artistic achievements of the Bronze Age world. Their mastery of metallurgy was not merely technical, but deeply integrated with religious and cultural practices that imbued their creations with symbolic meaning and spiritual significance. The artistic legacy of the Hittites reveals a culture that successfully synthesized influences from multiple civilizations while developing distinctly original approaches to visual expression. Unlike some of their contemporaries, who focused primarily on monumental architecture celebrating royal power, Hittite artists excelled in creating works that serve both ceremonial and practical functions. Their pottery, textiles, and metalwork displayed a sophisticated understanding of form and decoration that balanced aesthetic appeal with functional utility. The distinctive Hittite artistic style combined elements borrowed from Mesopotamian, Egyptian, and local Anatolian traditions, yet the resulting synthesis was uniquely their own. Religious life among the Hittites operated on multiple levels that reflected both their Indo-European heritage and their integration of local Anatolian traditions. The Hittite pantheon was remarkably inclusive, incorporating deities from conquered territories alongside traditional Indo-European gods in a complex theological system that recognized divine authority across ethnic and linguistic boundaries. This religious tolerance was not merely pragmatic, but reflected fundamental Hittite beliefs about the nature of divine power and the relationship between human communities and the supernatural realm. The storm god held supreme position within the Hittite pantheon, embodying the fierce power of Anatolian weather patterns and the military might that sustained Hittite dominance. This deity, known by various names including Tarhun and Teshub, depending on regional traditions, represented the essential life-giving force of rain and thunder, while also serving as patron of warriors and kings. The mythology surrounding the storm god included epic narratives of cosmic battles against chaotic forces, stories that resonated with similar themes found throughout Indo-European traditions, while incorporating distinctly Anatolian elements. Alongside the storm god, the sun goddess of Arinna occupied a position of extraordinary prominence that distinguished Hittite religion from many of its contemporaries. This powerful feminine deity served as patron of the royal family and protector of the state. Her cult centered in the sacred city of Arinna, somewhere near the capital. The elevation of a female deity to such prominence reflected aspects of Hittite culture that valued feminine power and authority in ways that were unusual for their time. The sun goddess presided over matters of justice, royal legitimacy, and state protection, her worship involving elaborate ceremonies that reinforced the connection between divine favor and political stability. The complexity of Hittite religious practice extended beyond major deities to encompass hundreds of lesser gods and goddesses responsible for every aspect of daily life. Hittite texts speak of the 1,000 gods of Hatti, and archaeological evidence suggests that religious observance permeated all levels of society, from royal ceremonies to household rituals. This extensive pantheon required equally extensive ceremonial calendars, with festivals and offerings occurring throughout the year to maintain proper relationships with the divine realm. The Hittite approach to religious practice emphasized reciprocity between humans and gods, viewing ritual observance as essential to maintaining the cosmic order upon which civilization depended. Temple architecture and religious art provided focal points for community identity and spiritual practice throughout Hittite territory. The great temple complexes at Hattusa and other major centers represented some of the most ambitious architectural projects of the Bronze Age world, featuring massive stone foundations, sophisticated drainage systems, and elaborate decorative programs. These structures served not only as centers of worship, but as economic institutions that controlled vast agricultural estates and craft workshops. The integration of religious and economic functions within temple complexes reflected the central role that spiritual concerns played in Hittite society and governance. The legal traditions of the Hittites reveal a sophisticated understanding of justice and social order that was remarkably progressive for its historical context. Hittite law codes emphasized compensation over retribution, seeking to restore social harmony rather than simply punish wrongdoing. This approach reflected fundamental Hittite values that prioritized community stability and individual rehabilitation over harsh punishment. The legal system recognized different social classes, while also providing protections and rights that extended even to slaves, creating a more nuanced approach to justice than was found in many contemporary civilizations. Military organization among the Hittites combined traditional Indo-European warrior culture with innovations adapted to Anatolian conditions and strategic requirements. The famous Hittite chariot forces represented the cutting edge of Bronze Age military technology, but their effectiveness depended on sophisticated support systems that included horse breeding programs, weapons manufacturing, and tactical training regimens. Hittite military manuals, among the earliest technical literature in any language, reveal systematic approaches to warfare that emphasize preparation, coordination, and technological superiority over simple numerical advantage. The social structure of Hittite civilization reflected both hierarchical organization and surprising degrees of mobility and flexibility. While royal families and noble lineages clearly held privileged positions, evidence suggests that talented individuals could advance through military service, religious office, or commercial success. Women in Hittite society enjoyed rights and responsibilities that were often more extensive than those found in contemporary civilizations, including the ability to own property, conduct business, and participate in legal proceedings. This relatively egalitarian approach to gender relations may have reflected Indo-European traditions or represented adaptations to Anatolian conditions that required maximum utilization of human resources. Trade networks connecting Hittite territory to distant regions provided both economic opportunities and cultural exchanges that enriched Hittite civilization in countless ways. Merchants traveling along routes controlled by Hittite authorities carried not only goods, but ideas, technologies, and artistic influences that were absorbed and transformed by Hittite craftsmen and scholars. The famous trade in metals, particularly tin needed for bronze production, created dependencies and alliances that extended Hittite influence far beyond their direct political control. These commercial relationships often served as foundations for diplomatic connections that helped maintain regional stability. The administrative systems developed by Hittite rulers to govern their extensive territories represented remarkable achievements in Bronze Age statecraft. The challenge of maintaining control over diverse populations scattered across difficult terrain required innovations in communication, record-keeping, and provincial administration that influenced subsequent imperial traditions. Hittite bureaucrats developed standardized procedures for tax collection, military recruitment, and judicial administration that allowed central authorities to maintain effective control while accommodating local variations in custom and practice. Provincial governors appointed by Hittite kings served as crucial links between central authority and local communities, their effectiveness depending on careful balancing of imperial requirements with regional needs and traditions. These officials, drawn from both Hittite nobility and local elite families, represented a sophisticated approach to imperial administration that recognized the importance of local cooperation in maintaining stable governance. The success of this system depended on clear communication between center and periphery, facilitated by the extensive archives of correspondence that have provided modern scholars with detailed insights into Hittite administrative practices. The diplomatic achievements of Hittite rulers established precedents that would influence international relations for millennia to come. The famous peace treaty concluded with Egypt after the Battle of Kadesh represented not merely an end to hostilities, but a sophisticated framework for ongoing cooperation between major powers. This agreement included provisions for mutual defense, extradition of refugees, and regular diplomatic exchanges that created lasting stability in a region previously characterized by constant warfare. The survival of both Hittite and Egyptian versions of this treaty provides remarkable evidence of ancient diplomatic practices and the importance that both civilizations placed on formal international agreements. Marriage alliances between Hittite and foreign royal families served as crucial components of diplomatic strategy, creating personal bonds that reinforce political agreements. These dynastic connections often involved elaborate ceremonies and gift exchanges that strengthened cultural ties between different peoples, while also serving practical political functions. The integration of foreign princesses into Hittite royal households brought new cultural influences that enriched court life while also creating ongoing obligations and opportunities for diplomatic cooperation. Intelligence gathering and espionage activities, though less well documented than formal diplomacy, clearly played important roles in Hittite foreign policy. References in royal correspondence suggest sophisticated networks of informants and agents who provided crucial information about enemy intentions and capabilities. This intelligence apparatus, combined with diplomatic initiatives and military preparations, created comprehensive approaches to international relations that maximized Hittite advantages, while minimizing risks of costly conflicts. The technological innovations developed by Hittite craftsmen and engineers influenced civilizations throughout the ancient Near East and Mediterranean world. Their advances in metallurgy, particularly in ironworking, may have contributed to the transition from the Bronze Age to the Iron Age that transformed ancient societies. While the extent of Hittite influence on iron technology remains debated among scholars, evidence suggests that Anatolian metalworkers were among the earliest to develop practical techniques for producing and working iron implements. Urban planning and architecture in major Hittite cities demonstrated sophisticated understanding of defensive requirements, water management, and public health considerations. The massive fortifications at Hattusa, featuring complex gate systems and advanced defensive technologies, represented some of the most impressive military architecture of their era. These defensive works were integrated with equally impressive civilian infrastructure, including roads, drainage systems, and public buildings that supported urban populations of unprecedented size for highland Anatolia. The intellectual achievements of Hittite scholars encompassed not only practical administration and military affairs, but also literature, history, and religious philosophy that enriched ancient Near Eastern culture. Hittite scribes preserved and transmitted literary traditions from multiple cultures, while also creating original works that reflected distinctly Hittite perspectives on universal themes. Their historical chronicles provided models for later historiographical traditions, while their religious texts contributed to theological developments that influenced subsequent civilizations. Here at Obscure Historiesa, we find ourselves continually amazed by the depth and complexity of civilizations that were nearly lost to history. The Hittites exemplify the rich cultural achievements that await discovery when scholars persist in uncovering the forgotten chapters of human experience, revealing that our understanding of the ancient world remains far from complete. The collapse of Hittite civilization represents one of history's most perplexing vanishing acts, a sudden disappearance that left archaeologists and historians grappling with questions that persist to this day. Around 1180 BCE, the mighty empire that had once commanded respect from Egypt and Assyria simply ceased to exist as a unified political entity. The great capital of Hattusa was abandoned and eventually destroyed, its massive walls and impressive temples left to crumble under the relentless Anatolian weather. The administrative apparatus that had governed territories spanning modern-day Turkey and beyond dissolved seemingly overnight, leaving behind only scattered remnants and mysterious ruins that would puzzle later civilizations for millennia. The factors contributing to this dramatic collapse were as complex as the civilization itself had been sophisticated. Climate change appears to have played a crucial role, with evidence suggesting that prolonged droughts devastated agricultural production across the Anatolian highlands during the late 13th century BCE. These environmental pressures created cascading effects throughout Hittite society, undermining the economic foundations that had supported their extensive military and administrative systems. Crop failures led to famine, which in turn sparked internal unrest and weakened the kingdom's ability to defend its extensive frontiers against increasingly aggressive neighbors. Archaeological evidence from this period reveals a civilization under enormous stress, struggling to maintain the complex systems that had enabled their rise to prominence. Inscriptions from the final decades of Hittite power speak of desperate measures undertaken by kings who found themselves fighting on multiple fronts simultaneously. The traditional Hittite strategy of maintaining control through diplomatic alliances and strategic marriages became increasingly difficult to sustain as economic pressures forced difficult choices between competing priorities. Resources that had once been allocated to maintaining far-flung territories were redirected toward defending the heartland, creating a spiral of territorial contraction that accelerated as peripheral regions broke away or fell to ineme. Forces. The phenomenon known to modern scholars as the Bronze Age collapse affected civilizations throughout the eastern Mediterranean world during roughly the same period that witnessed Hittite decline. This broader pattern of societal breakdown suggests that the Hittites were victims of forces larger than any single kingdom could resist, caught in a perfect storm of environmental, economic, and political pressures that overwhelmed even their sophisticated administrative capabilities. The interconnected nature of Bronze Age trade networks meant that disruptions in one region quickly spread to others, creating cascading failures that brought down multiple civilizations in rapid succession. Military pressures from various directions compounded the difficulties faced by late Hittite rulers as traditional enemies sensed weakness and moved to exploit Hittite vulnerabilities. The Kaskan peoples to the north, who had been contained through careful diplomacy and strategic fortifications for centuries, began launching increasingly bold raids into Hittite heartland territories. These attacks disrupted agricultural production and forced the diversion of military resources from other threatened frontiers, creating opportunities for additional enemies to press their own advantages against an increasingly overstretched Hittite military. The mysterious Sea Peoples, whose origins and exact identity remain subjects of scholarly debate, appear to have played significant roles in the destabilization that ultimately destroyed Hittite power. These maritime raiders and migrants, driven perhaps by their own environmental and economic pressures, launched devastating attacks against coastal settlements throughout the eastern Mediterranean. While the Hittite heartland was largely inland, and therefore somewhat protected from direct seaborne assault, the disruption of trade networks and the loss of allied coastal cities severely undermined Hittite economic stability and diplomatic influence. Internal political struggles further weakened Hittite resistance to these external pressures, as competing factions within the royal family and nobility pursued conflicting strategies for addressing their imperial expansion, became the mounting crises. The sophisticate liability during this constitutional monarchy that had been a source of Hittite strength during period of rapid decision-making and resource allocation. The checks and balances that had prevented royal tyranny also slowed governmental responses to rapidly changing circumstances, creating delays and inconsistencies that enemies were quick to exploit. Religious and cultural factors may have contributed to the speed and completeness of Hittite collapse, as the failure of traditional rituals and ceremonies to prevent disaster undermined popular confidence in established institutions. The Hittite worldview, which emphasized the importance of maintaining proper relationships with divine powers through elaborate ceremonial observances, struggled to accommodate the reality of apparently unanswered prayers and unsuccessful rituals. When the gods seemed to abandon their chosen people, despite faithful observance of traditional requirements, the psychological impact on both elite and common populations was devastating. The administrative complexity that had enabled Hittite governance of diverse territories became a source of vulnerability when central coordination broke down. The extensive bureaucratic systems that had efficiently managed tax collection, military recruitment, and judicial administration required constant communication and supervision from Hattusa. As external pressures mounted and internal resources dwindled, maintaining these complex administrative networks became increasingly difficult, leading to a gradual breakdown of governmental authority in peripheral regions. Local governors and provincial administrators, faced with impossible demands from the capital and mounting pressures from their own populations, began making independent decisions that further fragmented Hittite unity. Some attempted to maintain loyalty to the central government despite deteriorating conditions, while others chose to align themselves with emerging local strongmen or foreign powers that seemed to offer better prospects for survival. This fragmentation of authority accelerated the dissolution of Hittite political control and made coordinated resistance to external threats virtually impossible. The economic disruptions that accompanied political breakdown created additional pressures that pushed Hittite society toward complete collapse. Trade networks that had provided essential goods and materials were severed by warfare and political instability, forcing communities to become self-sufficient in ways that their specialized economies were ill-equipped to handle. Urban centers that had relied on agricultural surpluses from distant regions found themselves unable to support their populations, leading to widespread abandonment of major settlements, including the capital itself. Technological knowledge and specialized skills began to disappear as the social structures that had supported craftsmen, scribes, and other specialists broke down. The cuneiform writing system that had enabled Hittite administration and cultural expression was abandoned, as literacy became unnecessary for survival in increasingly fragmented and impoverished communities. Within a few generations, the sophisticated civilization that had produced extensive archives and complex literary works had devolved into scattered tribal groups, with only oral traditions to preserve memories of their former greatness. The speed with which Hittite civilization disappeared from historical consciousness suggests that their collapse was not merely political, but cultural as well. Unlike some civilizations that maintained cultural continuity despite political fragmentation, the Hittites seem to have lost their distinctive identity as a people relatively quickly after the fall of their kingdom. The languages they had spoken gradually gave way to others. Their religious practices were absorbed into local traditions or abandoned entirely, and their historical memories faded into legend and myth. Archaeological evidence from sites throughout former Hittite territory reveals patterns of abandonment and destruction that paint a vivid picture of civilizational collapse. Major urban centers show clear signs of violent destruction, followed by long periods of abandonment, with subsequent occupations representing entirely different cultural traditions. The sophisticated material culture that had characterized Hittite civilization disappeared remarkably quickly, replaced by much simpler technologies and social organizations that bore little resemblance to their imperial predecessors. The loss of Hittite historical records and cultural traditions created a gap in ancient Near Eastern history that would not be filled until modern archaeological discoveries began to recover their story. For nearly 3 millennia, the achievements and contributions of this remarkable civilization were known only through scattered references in the records of their former enemies and allies. This historical amnesia demonstrates how completely a civilization can vanish when the social and political structures that maintain cultural memory are destroyed. Regional successor states that emerged from the ruins of the Hittite Empire retained some elements of Hittite culture and administrative practice, but these Neo-Hittite kingdoms were pale shadows of their imperial predecessor. Located primarily in southeastern Anatolia and northern Syria, these smaller polities preserved certain artistic traditions and religious practices, while adapting to much reduced circumstances and capabilities. Their survival provides valuable insights into Hittite culture, while also illustrating how completely the original empire had been transformed by the collapse of the late 13th century BCE. The influence of Hittite diplomatic and legal traditions may have survived their political collapse through transmission to successor civilizations that adopted and adapted their innovations. The precedents established by Hittite peace treaties and constitutional limitations on royal power influenced later developments in international law and governmental structure, though these connections were often indirect and unrecognized by the societies that benefited from them. Modern scholars continue to discover evidence of Hittite contributions to legal and diplomatic traditions that were once attributed entirely to later civilizations. Linguistic evidence suggests that Hittite and related Anatolian languages continued to be spoken in isolated regions long after the collapse of the empire, gradually giving way to other Indo-European languages that became dominant in the region. The survival of Hittite linguistic elements in later Anatolian languages provides clues about the processes by which civilizations are absorbed and transformed rather than simply disappearing entirely. These linguistic remnants represent one of the few direct connections between the ancient Hittite world and later historical periods. The rediscovery of Hittite civilization in modern times has revealed the extent to which our understanding of ancient history was incomplete before archaeological methods uncovered their story. The techniques developed for deciphering Hittite cuneiform and interpreting their material remains have contributed to broader advances in archaeological and linguistic methodology that continue to yield insights about other lost civilizations. The Hittite case demonstrates both the fragility of historical memory and the power of modern scholarship to recover forgotten chapters of human experience. Modern Turkey has embraced the Hittites as an important part of its cultural heritage, recognizing their significance as one of the great civilizations that flourished in Anatolian territory. Museums, archaeological sites, and cultural institutions throughout Turkey celebrate Hittite achievements while supporting ongoing research that continues to reveal new aspects of their civilization. This modern appreciation represents a remarkable resurrection of a people who had been forgotten for millennia, demonstrating how archaeological discovery can restore lost voices to historical consciousness. The study of Hittite civilization continues to evolve as new archaeological discoveries and analytical techniques provide fresh insights into their society and culture. Recent excavations at Hattusa and other sites have uncovered additional archives, architectural remains, and artifacts that fill gaps in our understanding, while also raising new questions about Hittite achievements and influence. Advanced scientific methods for analyzing ancient materials are revealing details about Hittite technology, trade relationships, and daily life that were invisible to earlier generations of scholars. International cooperation among scholars studying Hittite civilization reflects the global significance of their discoveries and the continuing relevance of Hittite achievements to modern understanding of human cultural development. Research projects involving Turkish, European, and American institutions are producing comprehensive studies that place Hittite civilization within broader contexts of ancient Near Eastern and Mediterranean history. These collaborative efforts demonstrate how the rediscovery of lost civilizations can bring together scholars from different traditions and perspectives in pursuit of shared understanding. The technological innovations attributed to Hittite craftsmen continue to influence modern manufacturing and engineering practices, particularly in metallurgy and materials science. Ancient techniques for working metals and creating alloys have been studied and adapted for contemporary applications, while Hittite architectural innovations provide insights for modern construction in seismically active regions. This practical relevance of ancient knowledge demonstrates that the study of lost civilizations offers more than historical curiosity. Educational institutions around the world now include Hittite civilization in curricula that seek to provide comprehensive understanding of ancient history and cultural development. The Hittite example serves as a powerful illustration of how archaeological discovery can fundamentally alter historical understanding, while also demonstrating the sophisticated achievements of ancient peoples. Students studying Hittite civilization gain insights into the complexity of ancient societies and the processes by which cultures rise, flourish, and ultimately disappear from historical memory. Here at Obscure Historiesa, we recognize that the Hittite story exemplifies the ongoing process of historical discovery that continues to reshape our understanding of the ancient world, revealing the remarkable achievements of peoples who were nearly lost to time, and demonstrating that human civilization has always been more complex and sophisticated than we might assume. The diplomatic correspondence preserved in Hittite archives reveals a sophisticated understanding of international relations that was remarkably advanced for the Bronze Age world. These documents, written primarily in Akkadian cuneiform, which served as the diplomatic lingua franca of the ancient Near East, demonstrate that Hittite rulers maintained regular communication with powers as distant as Babylon and as influential as Egypt. The tone and content of these letters suggest relationships of mutual respect rather than mere tributary arrangements, indicating that the Hittites had successfully established themselves as equals among the great powers of their era. Marriage diplomacy played a particularly crucial role in Hittite international strategy, with royal women serving as living symbols of alliance and cooperation between different kingdoms. These dynastic marriages were far more than simple political arrangements, involving elaborate negotiations over dowries, ceremonial protocols, and the religious practices that the foreign princesses would be expected to observe in their new homes. The correspondence surrounding these marriages reveals the careful attention that Hittite rulers paid to cultural sensitivities and the genuine efforts made to ensure that foreign wives could maintain connections to their homelands while integrating into Hittite court society. The famous correspondence between Hittite rulers and their Egyptian counterparts provides remarkable insights into the personal relationships that developed between ancient monarchs. These letters move beyond formal diplomatic language to include discussions of health concerns, family matters, and even complaints about the quality of gifts exchanged between courts. Such personal touches suggest that diplomatic relationships in the ancient world could develop into genuine friendships that transcended political calculations, creating bonds of mutual affection and respect that helped maintain peace even during periods of tension. Intelligence networks operated by Hittite administrators extended throughout their sphere of influence and beyond, providing crucial information about potential threats and opportunities. References in administrative documents suggest that the Hittites maintained sophisticated systems for gathering information about enemy troop movements, political developments in neighbouring kingdoms, and economic conditions that might affect trade relationships. This intelligence apparatus required considerable resources and coordination, indicating the high priority that Hittite rulers placed on staying informed about developments beyond their immediate borders. The legal framework governing international relationships in the Hittite world was remarkably sophisticated, establishing precedents that would influence diplomatic practice for centuries to come. Hittite treaties included detailed provisions for resolving disputes, exchanging prisoners, and maintaining trade relationships, even during periods of political tension. These agreements demonstrate a mature understanding of the practical requirements for maintaining stable international relationships in a world where communication was slow and misunderstandings could easily escalate into warfare. Commercial relationships provided another layer of international connection that often proved more durable than purely political alliances. Hittite merchants operating under royal protection established trading posts throughout the Near East, creating networks of economic interdependence that gave all parties strong incentives to maintain peaceful relationships. The legal protections extended to these merchants and the diplomatic immunity they enjoyed demonstrate the sophisticated understanding that Hittite rulers had developed regarding the connection between commerce and international stability. Cultural exchanges facilitated by diplomatic relationships enriched Hittite civilization in countless ways, bringing new artistic techniques, religious concepts, and technological innovations into their homeland. Foreign craftsmen working in Hittite cities introduced new methods for working metals, creating textiles, and decorating pottery that were then adapted and transformed by local artisans. These cultural borrowings were not simple imitations, but creative adaptations that incorporated foreign elements into distinctively Hittite artistic traditions. Religious diplomacy represented another dimension of Hittite international relations, with rulers often exchanging cult statues and participating in each other's religious festivals as demonstrations of friendship and mutual respect. These religious exchanges were not merely ceremonial, but reflected genuine belief in the power of foreign gods to influence political relationships. The Hittite practice of incorporating foreign deities into their own pantheon served both religious and diplomatic functions, creating spiritual bonds that reinforced political alliances. The administrative challenges of maintaining diplomatic relationships across the vast distances of the ancient Near East required innovations in communication and record-keeping that influenced bureaucratic practices throughout the region. Hittite chancelleries developed standardized formats for different types of diplomatic correspondence, created training programs for diplomatic personnel, and established protocols for handling sensitive negotiations. These administrative innovations were adopted by other powers and contributed to the development of international diplomatic traditions that persisted long after the Hittite Empire itself had disappeared. Succession crises in neighbouring kingdoms provided both opportunities and challenges for Hittite diplomacy, as rulers sought to influence outcomes while avoiding direct military intervention that might prove costly or counterproductive. The delicate balance required to support preferred candidates without alienating other factions demanded sophisticated understanding of internal politics in foreign kingdoms. Hittite diplomatic archives preserve records of these complex negotiations, revealing the careful calculations that ancient rulers made when deciding how to respond to instability in neighbouring territories. The economic implications of diplomatic relationships extended far beyond simple trade arrangements to encompass complex systems of tribute, taxation, and resource sharing that integrated the Hittite Empire with the broader Near Eastern economy. These economic relationships created mutual dependencies that gave all parties strong incentives to maintain peaceful relationships, but they also created vulnerabilities that enemies could exploit during periods of conflict. The management of these economic relationships required constant attention from Hittite administrators and contributed to the development of sophisticated accounting and administrative practices. Military alliances formed another crucial component of Hittite diplomatic strategy, with mutual defense agreements providing security benefits that allowed rulers to focus resources on internal development rather than constant military preparation. These military relationships required careful coordination of tactical doctrines, standardization of equipment and training, and development of communication systems that could function effectively during joint campaigns. The success of these military alliances depended on the trust and mutual respect that had been built through years of careful diplomatic cultivation. Here at Obscure Historiesa, we continue to be amazed by the sophistication of ancient diplomatic practices and the ways in which careful scholarship can reveal the complex international relationships that shaped the ancient world. The Hittite example demonstrates that our ancestors were far more skilled at managing international relations than popular stereotypes about ancient warfare might suggest. The technological achievements that distinguished Hittite civilization from their contemporaries extended beyond military applications into realms that would influence daily life throughout their empire and beyond. Archaeological evidence reveals a people who excelled at solving practical problems through innovative engineering solutions, developing techniques and technologies that were often centuries ahead of their time. Their mastery of metallurgy, hydraulic engineering, and architectural construction created foundations for technological traditions that would persist long after their political collapse. Metallurgical innovations developed by Hittite craftsmen represented some of the most significant technological advances of the Bronze Age world. Their techniques for smelting and working various metals, particularly their early experiments with iron production, placed them at the forefront of technological development during a period of rapid innovation. The quality and sophistication of Hittite metalwork, evidenced by surviving examples of weapons, tools, and decorative objects, demonstrate a level of technical mastery that few contemporary civilizations could match. The famous Hittite expertise in chariot construction and horse training represented the culmination of centuries of technological development and practical experience. Their chariots incorporated design innovations that made them faster, more maneuverable, and more durable than those produced by other civilizations. The training programs developed for chariot horses were documented in detailed manuals that represent some of the earliest technical literature in any language, demonstrating systematic approaches to animal training that were remarkably sophisticated for their time. Water management systems developed for major Hittite cities showcased engineering capabilities that were essential for survival in the challenging Anatolian environment. The complex networks of channels, reservoirs, and drainage systems that supplied fresh water to urban populations while managing seasonal flooding demonstrate sophisticated understanding of hydraulic principles. These engineering achievements required not only technical knowledge, but also the organizational capabilities necessary to coordinate large-scale construction projects involving thousands of workers. Architectural innovations visible in surviving Hittite structures reveal a civilization that successfully combined aesthetic considerations with practical requirements in ways that created buildings of remarkable durability and beauty. The massive defensive walls at Hattusa incorporated advanced engineering techniques that made them virtually impregnable to contemporary siege methods, while also serving as impressive symbols of royal power. The integration of defensive, residential, and ceremonial functions within unified architectural complexes demonstrates sophisticated urban planning capabilities. Agricultural technologies developed by Hittite farmers enabled productive cultivation of crops in highland environments that were often marginal for agriculture. Their techniques for soil management, crop rotation, and water conservation allowed them to support larger populations than the natural carrying capacity of their territory might have suggested possible. These agricultural innovations were essential to the economic foundations that supported Hittite urban civilization and military expansion. Textile production among the Hittites achieved levels of sophistication that made their fabrics highly prized in international markets throughout the Near East. Archaeological evidence suggests that Hittite weavers developed techniques for creating complex patterns and achieving brilliant colors that were difficult to replicate elsewhere. The economic importance of textile production is evidenced by the extensive administrative records devoted to managing wool production, dye procurement, and the organization of weaving workshops. Transportation infrastructure developed to connect different regions of the Hittite Empire represented major engineering achievements that facilitated both military operations and commercial activities. The road systems that linked major cities incorporated bridges, way stations, and communication networks that enabled rapid movement of troops and information across difficult terrain. These transportation networks were essential to maintaining political control over the extensive territories that comprised the Hittite Empire. Communication technologies developed by Hittite administrators enabled effective governance of their diverse and far-flung territories. The standardization of writing systems, development of administrative protocols, and creation of messenger networks allowed central authorities to maintain contact with provincial governors and military commanders across vast distances. These communication innovations were crucial to the administrative efficiency that distinguished Hittite governance from that of many contemporary civilizations. Medical knowledge preserved in Hittite texts reveals a civilization that had developed sophisticated understanding of anatomy, disease, and therapeutic techniques. Their medical practitioners combined empirical observation with religious healing practices in ways that often proved remarkably effective. The survival of medical texts alongside religious rituals suggests that Hittite healing traditions integrated physical and spiritual approaches to health in ways that reflected their broader worldview. Astronomical observations recorded by Hittite scholars demonstrate systematic attention to celestial phenomena that was essential for agricultural planning and religious observance. Their understanding of seasonal cycles and celestial movements enabled them to develop accurate calendars that coordinated religious festivals with agricultural activities. This astronomical knowledge also had practical applications for navigation and military planning that contributed to Hittite success in various endeavors. Mining and quarrying operations that supplied raw materials for Hittite construction and manufacturing projects required sophisticated engineering techniques for extracting resources from difficult terrain. Archaeological evidence reveals extensive mining operations that utilized advanced techniques for following ore veins, managing groundwater, and transporting heavy materials across long distances. These extractive industries were essential to the economic foundations that supported Hittite technological achievements. The preservation and transmission of technical knowledge through formal training programs and written documentation ensured that technological innovations developed by one generation could be passed on to their successors. The survival of technical manuals and training texts demonstrates that the Hittites had developed systematic approaches to education and knowledge preservation that were essential to maintaining their technological advantages. These educational innovations helped sustain Hittite technological leadership over several centuries. Quality control systems developed for Hittite manufacturing ensured that products met high standards of craftsmanship and reliability. Administrative records reveal detailed specifications for various types of goods, along with inspection procedures designed to maintain consistent quality. These quality control measures were essential to maintaining the reputation of Hittite products in international markets and ensuring that military equipment met the demanding requirements of warfare. The integration of technological innovation with religious and cultural practices ensured that new techniques and methods were accepted and adopted throughout Hittite society. Religious ceremonies often accompanied the introduction of new technologies, while cultural traditions provided frameworks for understanding and utilizing technical innovations. This integration of technology with broader cultural values helped ensure that innovations were not merely isolated achievements, but became integral parts of Hittite civilization. Here at Obscure Historiesa, we find ourselves continually impressed by the technological sophistication of ancient civilizations and the ways in which careful analysis of archaeological evidence can reveal the remarkable achievements of peoples who lived thousands of years ago. The Hittite example demonstrates that technological innovation has always been a driving force in human civilization, creating advantages that enabled some societies to achieve remarkable success despite challenging circumstances. The social organization that enabled Hittite achievements was as sophisticated as their technological innovations, creating frameworks for cooperation and coordination that allowed diverse populations to work together effectively toward common goals. Archaeological evidence and textual records reveal a society that successfully balanced individual initiative with collective responsibility, creating social institutions that were both flexible enough to adapt to changing circumstances and stable enough to maintain continuity across generations. The role of women in Hittite society was remarkably progressive for the ancient world, with legal and administrative records documenting extensive rights and responsibilities that were often denied to women in contemporary civilizations. Hittite women could own property, conduct business transactions, initiate legal proceedings, and participate in religious ceremonies in ways that reflected genuine respect for feminine contributions to society. This relatively egalitarian approach to gender relations may have contributed to the stability and prosperity that characterized Hittite civilization during its peak periods. Educational systems developed by the Hittites ensured that essential skills and knowledge were transmitted effectively from one generation to the next, while also providing opportunities for talented individuals to advance beyond their original social circumstances. The existence of specialized schools for training scribes, craftsmen, and administrators demonstrates systematic approaches to education that were essential to maintaining the complex bureaucratic and technological systems that supported Hittite civilization. Social mobility within Hittite society appears to have been more extensive than in many contemporary civilizations, with evidence suggesting that individuals could advance through military service, commercial success, or administrative competence regardless of their original social status. This meritocratic element in Hittite social organization may have contributed to the innovation and dynamism that characterized their civilization, as talented individuals had incentives to develop their capabilities and contribute to collective achievements. The integration of diverse ethnic and linguistic groups within Hittite society required sophisticated approaches to cultural accommodation that balanced unity with diversity. Rather than imposing uniform cultural standards throughout their empire, Hittite rulers developed policies that allowed different groups to maintain their distinctive traditions while participating in broader imperial institutions. This cultural tolerance contributed to the stability of Hittite rule and the creative synthesis that enriched their civilization. Religious institutions played crucial roles in maintaining social cohesion, and providing frameworks for community cooperation throughout Hittite territory. Temples served not only as centers of worship, but as economic institutions that coordinated agricultural production, craft manufacturing, and commercial activities. The integration of religious and economic functions helped ensure that spiritual values influenced practical decision-making, while also providing religious institutions with the resources necessary to support their activities. Kinship networks and family structures provided foundations for social organization that complemented formal political institutions, while also creating alternative sources of identity and loyalty. Hittite legal codes reveal sophisticated understanding of family relationships and the rights and obligations that derived from kinship connections. These family-based social networks helped maintain continuity during periods of political instability, while also providing support systems for individuals during times of personal crisis. Professional organizations and craft guilds developed specialized traditions and standards that maintained quality while also providing training and support for practitioners. These professional associations created communities of shared interest that transcended ethnic and regional boundaries, contributing to cultural integration within the Hittite Empire. The survival of technical knowledge and specialized skills depended heavily on these professional networks that preserved and transmitted essential capabilities. Military service provided opportunities for social advancement, while also creating bonds of loyalty and camaraderie that strengthened social cohesion throughout Hittite society. The integration of diverse ethnic groups within Hittite military units helped break down cultural barriers, while also creating shared experiences that fostered imperial identity. Military service thus served social as well as defensive functions, contributing to the integration of diverse populations within a unified imperial framework. Legal institutions developed sophisticated approaches to dispute resolution that balanced individual rights with community needs, while also accommodating the diverse legal traditions of different ethnic groups. Hittite legal codes demonstrate remarkable sophistication in addressing complex social relationships and providing frameworks for resolving conflicts without resorting to violence. These legal innovations contributed to social stability while also establishing precedents that influenced later legal developments. Economic relationships based on reciprocity and mutual obligation created networks of interdependence that strengthened social bonds, while also providing security for individuals and families. The Hittite economy combined market relationships with traditional obligations in ways that provided both economic efficiency and social stability. These economic arrangements helped ensure that prosperity was shared broadly enough to maintain social cohesion, while also providing incentives for individual initiative and achievement. The preservation of cultural memory through oral traditions, written records, and ceremonial practices ensured that important social values and historical experiences were transmitted from one generation to the next. Hittite society developed sophisticated mechanisms for maintaining cultural continuity while also adapting to changing circumstances. This balance between tradition and innovation was essential to their long-term success and helped create the stable social foundations that supported their remarkable achievements. Here, at Obscure Historiesa, we continue to discover that ancient societies were far more complex and sophisticated than popular stereotypes might suggest, with social institutions and cultural practices that often provided effective solutions to universal human challenges. The Hittite example demonstrates that successful civilizations have always depended on their ability to create social frameworks that enable diverse individuals to cooperate effectively, while also maintaining the cultural values that provide meaning and purpose to human existence. The artistic expressions that flourish throughout Hittite civilization reveal a people who possessed not only technical mastery, but also profound aesthetic sensibilities that distinguish their creative works from contemporary productions. Archaeological excavations have uncovered remarkable examples of Hittite artistry that demonstrate sophisticated understanding of form, proportion, and symbolic meaning. Their artistic achievements encompass multiple media, including stone carving, metalwork, pottery, and textile production, each reflecting distinctly Hittite approaches to visual expression while also incorporating influences absorbed from neighbouring civilizations. Stone carving represented one of the most impressive artistic traditions developed by Hittite craftsmen, who created monumental sculptures and architectural decorations that conveyed both political power and religious significance. The massive stone lions that guarded the gates of Hittite cities were not merely defensive symbols, but sophisticated artistic statements that combined naturalistic observation with symbolic abstraction. These sculptural works required not only technical skill in working with difficult materials, but also deep understanding of the cultural meanings that such images would convey to both Hittite citizens and foreign visitors. The integration of artistic production with religious practice ensured that Hittite art served spiritual as well as aesthetic functions, creating works that were believed to possess genuine power to influence divine relationships and human affairs. Temple decorations, cult statues, and ceremonial objects were created according to precise religious specifications that required artists to balance creative expression with ritual requirements. This integration of artistic and religious concerns produced works of remarkable beauty and spiritual intensity that reflected the central role of religious belief in Hittite civilization. Metalworking traditions among Hittite artisans achieved levels of sophistication that made their products highly sought after throughout the ancient Near East. Archaeological evidence reveals that Hittite metalworkers developed techniques for creating intricate decorative patterns, achieving brilliant surface finishes, and combining different metals in ways that enhanced both aesthetic appeal and functional performance. The survival of elaborate ceremonial weapons, jewelry, and vessels demonstrates that metalworking was considered a high art form, worthy of the finest craftsmen and most precious materials. Pottery production encompassed both utilitarian vessels for daily use and elaborate ceremonial pieces that served religious and social functions. Hittite potters developed distinctive decorative styles that incorporated geometric patterns, animal motifs, and religious symbols in ways that were immediately recognizable as products of their civilization. The technical quality of Hittite ceramics, evidenced by their durability and the precision of their construction, demonstrates mastery of complex firing techniques and sophisticated understanding of clay preparation and shaping methods. Textile arts flourished throughout Hittite territory, producing fabrics that were renowned for their quality and beauty in markets across the ancient world. Archaeological preservation of textile fragments and detailed administrative records of textile production reveal an industry that combined technical innovation with artistic creativity to produce goods that were both practical and beautiful. The complexity of patterns found in surviving textile fragments suggests that Hittite weavers had developed sophisticated techniques for creating intricate designs that required considerable skill and planning. Architectural decoration integrated artistic expression with functional requirements in ways that created buildings of remarkable beauty and symbolic power. The carved reliefs that adorned temple walls and palace facades conveyed complex narratives about divine relationships, royal achievements, and cultural values, while also serving practical functions in protecting and beautifying structural elements. These architectural decorations required coordination between artists, architects, and builders that demonstrate sophisticated project management capabilities. Jewelry and personal ornaments reveal artistic traditions that combine technical virtuosity with deep understanding of social symbolism and personal expression. Archaeological discoveries of Hittite jewelry demonstrate mastery of complex metalworking techniques, including granulation, filigree, and gemstone setting, that required years of training and exceptional skill. The symbolic content of personal ornaments often reflected religious beliefs, social status, and cultural identity in ways that made such objects important markers of individual and group identity. The production of luxury goods for international trade required artistic innovations that would appeal to diverse cultural tastes while maintaining distinctly Hittite characteristics. Hittite artisans developed the ability to create works that satisfied foreign aesthetic preferences without sacrificing their own cultural values and artistic traditions. This cultural adaptability contributed to the commercial success of Hittite luxury goods, while also spreading Hittite artistic influences throughout the ancient Near East. Workshop organization and training systems ensured that artistic skills and traditions were transmitted effectively from master craftsmen to their apprentices, while also providing opportunities for creative innovation and development. Administrative records reveal sophisticated systems for organizing artistic production that balanced quality control with creative freedom, ensuring that products met high standards while also allowing for individual expression. These workshop systems were essential to maintaining the consistently high quality that characterized Hittite artistic production. The integration of artistic production with royal patronage created opportunities for ambitious projects that pushed the boundaries of technical and creative achievement. Royal commissions provided artisans with access to the finest materials and the time necessary to create works of exceptional quality and complexity. This patronage system also ensured that the most talented artists had opportunities to develop their capabilities fully while contributing to projects that enhanced royal prestige and cultural achievement. Artistic exchanges with neighbouring civilizations enriched Hittite creative traditions while also spreading Hittite artistic influences to distant regions. The movement of skilled craftsmen between different kingdoms, the exchange of luxury goods as diplomatic gifts, and the adaptation of foreign artistic techniques created dynamic processes of cultural interaction that benefited all participants. These artistic exchanges contributed to the cosmopolitan character that distinguished Hittite civilization during its peak periods. The preservation of artistic traditions through periods of political instability demonstrates the deep cultural significance that artistic expression held within Hittite society. Even during times of warfare and economic difficulty, communities continued to support artistic production and maintain the workshop systems that preserved essential skills and cultural knowledge. This commitment to artistic expression reflects the central role that beauty and creative achievement played in Hittite understanding of what constituted a meaningful and successful civilization. The influence of Hittite artistic traditions extended far beyond their immediate geographical boundaries and historical period, contributing to artistic developments that would influence subsequent civilizations throughout Anatolia and the broader Near East. Elements of Hittite artistic style can be traced in later artistic traditions that emerged in regions formerly controlled by their empire, demonstrating the lasting impact of their creative achievements. These artistic legacies represent one of the most enduring contributions that Hittite civilization made to human cultural development. Here at Obscure Historiesa, we find ourselves continually amazed by the artistic sophistication of ancient civilizations and the ways in which careful study of material remains can reveal the creative achievements of peoples whose artistic traditions were nearly lost to time. The Hittite example demonstrates that artistic expression has always been central to human civilization, creating works of beauty and meaning that transcend their immediate historical contexts. The economic foundations that supported Hittite achievements rested on sophisticated understanding of resource management, trade relationships, and production systems that enabled them to maximize the potential of their challenging geographical environment. Archaeological evidence and administrative records reveal an economy that successfully integrated agricultural production, craft manufacturing, and long-distance commerce in ways that created prosperity sufficient to support their impressive military and cultural achievements. The complexity of Hittite economic systems demonstrates that ancient civilizations were capable of developing remarkably sophisticated approaches to managing resources and organizing production. Agricultural innovations developed by Hittite farmers enabled productive cultivation of crops in highland environments that presented significant challenges for food production. Their techniques for managing soil fertility, conserving water, and adapting crops to local conditions allowed them to support urban populations and military forces that were large relative to the natural carrying capacity of their territory. These agricultural achievements required not only technical knowledge, but also sophisticated systems for organizing labor and coordinating farming activities across diverse geographical regions. The development of specialized craft production created economic opportunities that extended far beyond subsistence agriculture, while also providing the manufactured goods necessary for maintaining complex urban civilizations. Hittite craftsmen achieved levels of specialization that enabled them to produce goods of exceptional quality and sophistication, creating products that were competitive in international markets throughout the ancient Near East. This craft specialization required sophisticated systems for training workers, organizing production, and distributing finished goods. Trade networks established by Hittite merchants extended throughout the known world of their time, creating commercial relationships that brought exotic goods, new technologies, and cultural influences into their homeland, while also providing markets for their own products. The success of these trading ventures required not only commercial acumen, but also diplomatic skills, necessary for negotiating with foreign rulers and navigating the complex political relationships that governed international commerce. These trade networks became crucial sources of wealth and cultural enrichment for Hittite civilization. Resource extraction operations that supplied raw materials for Hittite manufacturing and construction projects required sophisticated engineering capabilities and organizational systems that could coordinate large-scale industrial activities. Archaeological evidence reveals extensive mining operations, quarrying activities, and logging operations that provided the metals, stone, and timber necessary for their impressive architectural and technological achievements. The management of these extractive industries required considerable technical expertise and administrative capabilities. Labor organization systems developed by Hittite administrators enabled effective utilization of human resources, while also providing opportunities for individual advancement and economic security. Their approaches to organizing workers balanced individual incentives with collective requirements in ways that maintained high productivity, while also ensuring that workers had stakes in the success of their enterprises. These labor systems were essential to the economic efficiency that enabled Hittite civilization to achieve remarkable prosperity despite geographical challenges. Financial institutions and commercial practices developed sophisticated mechanisms for facilitating trade, managing investments, and providing credit that enabled complex economic transactions across vast distances and long time periods. Administrative records reveal banking systems, commercial law, and investment practices that were remarkably advanced for their historical period. These financial innovations were essential to the commercial success that provided economic foundations for Hittite political and cultural achievements. Market systems that connected producers with consumers throughout Hittite territory created economic integration that strengthened political unity, while also providing opportunities for regional specialization and economic efficiency. The development of standardized weights, measures, and currencies facilitated commercial transactions, while also reducing transaction costs and increasing market transparency. These market institutions were crucial to the economic prosperity that supported Hittite civilization during its peak periods. Taxation systems developed sophisticated approaches to revenue generation that balanced the need for public resources with incentives for private economic activity. Hittite tax policies appear to have been designed to encourage productive activities while also ensuring that the state had adequate resources for military defense, infrastructure maintenance, and public services. The sophistication of these taxation systems demonstrates advanced understanding of the relationships between public policy and economic performance. Economic planning and resource allocation required sophisticated analytical capabilities and administrative systems that could coordinate complex economic activities across diverse regions and sectors. The survival of detailed administrative records demonstrates that Hittite officials developed systematic approaches to economic management that enabled them to mobilize resources effectively for major projects, while also maintaining the economic stability necessary for long-term prosperity. These planning capabilities were essential to their success in maintaining a complex civilization in a challenging environment. The integration of economic activities with religious and cultural practices ensured that material prosperity was understood within broader frameworks of meaning and value that emphasized community welfare and spiritual obligations. Economic activities were often accompanied by religious ceremonies, while commercial relationships were governed by ethical principles that reflected fundamental cultural values. This integration of economic and cultural concerns helped maintain social cohesion, while also providing moral frameworks for business relationships. Innovation and technological development were driven by economic incentives that rewarded creative problem-solving and technical improvement, while also providing resources for research and development activities. The Hittite economy created conditions that encouraged innovation, while also ensuring that new technologies and methods were adopted and diffused throughout their society. These innovation systems were crucial to maintaining the technological advantages that contributed to Hittite military and economic success. The resilience of Hittite economic systems enabled them to survive and recover from various crises, including warfare, natural disasters, and political instability that might have destroyed less sophisticated economies. Their diversified economic base, flexible institutions, and adaptive capabilities allowed them to maintain prosperity even during difficult periods. However, the ultimate collapse of their civilization demonstrates that even sophisticated economic systems have limits and can be overwhelmed by sufficiently severe combinations of challenges. Here at Obscure Historiesa, we continue to be impressed by the economic sophistication of ancient civilizations and the ways in which careful analysis of administrative records and archaeological evidence can reveal the complex systems that supported remarkable cultural achievements. The Hittite example demonstrates that economic innovation and sophisticated resource management have always been essential foundations for civilizational success, creating the material prosperity necessary for cultural and intellectual achievements. The intellectual traditions that flourished within Hittite civilization encompassed remarkable achievements in literature, law, administration, and technical knowledge that demonstrate sophisticated approaches to organizing and preserving human knowledge. The extensive archives discovered at Hattusa and other Hittite sites contain thousands of cuneiform tablets that reveal a literate society committed to documenting and transmitting important information across generations. These intellectual achievements were essential to the administrative efficiency, cultural continuity, and technological innovation that characterized Hittite civilization during its peak periods. Legal scholarship among Hittite jurists produced sophisticated legal codes that balanced individual rights with community needs, while also providing frameworks for resolving complex disputes and maintaining social order. Their legal innovations included detailed provisions for different types of crimes, systematic approaches to evidence evaluation, and procedures for appeals that ensured fair treatment for all social classes. The influence of these legal traditions extended far beyond Hittite territory and contributed to the development of legal systems throughout the ancient Near East. Historical writing and record-keeping practices developed systematic approaches to documenting important events and preserving institutional memory that enabled effective governance and cultural continuity. Hittite chroniclers created detailed accounts of military campaigns, diplomatic negotiations, and administrative decisions that provide modern scholars with unprecedented insights into ancient governmental practices. These historical records also served practical functions in training administrators and providing precedents for addressing similar situations in the future. Administrative scholarship produced sophisticated systems for organizing governmental activities, managing resources, and coordinating complex projects that required collaboration among diverse groups and institutions. The survival of detailed administrative manuals and procedural guides demonstrates that Hittite officials developed systematic approaches to bureaucratic management that were remarkably advanced for their historical period. These administrative innovations were crucial to their success in governing extensive territories and diverse populations. Literary traditions encompassed both original compositions and adaptations of works from neighbouring civilizations that enriched Hittite culture while also preserving important texts that might otherwise have been lost. Hittite scribes created epic narratives, religious poetry, and wisdom literature that reflected distinctly Hittite perspectives, while also incorporating influences from Mesopotamian, Egyptian, and local Anatolian traditions. These literary achievements demonstrate the cultural sophistication and intellectual curiosity that characterized Hittite civilization. Technical documentation and instruction manuals preserved essential knowledge about craftsmanship, engineering, and specialized skills that were crucial to maintaining their technological advantages. The survival of detailed instructions for horse training, metalworking techniques, and construction methods demonstrates systematic approaches to technical education that ensured important skills were transmitted effectively from one generation to the next. These technical documents represent some of the earliest examples of systematic technical literature in human history. Religious scholarship and theological reflection produced sophisticated understanding of divine relationships and ritual requirements that guided both personal devotion and state ceremonies. Hittite religious texts reveal complex theological systems that attempted to reconcile different religious traditions while also providing practical guidance for maintaining proper relationships with divine powers. These religious writings demonstrate intellectual sophistication in addressing fundamental questions about human existence and divine authority. Educational systems developed systematic approaches to training scribes, administrators, and specialists that ensured essential skills and knowledge were preserved and transmitted effectively. Archaeological evidence reveals schools and training programs that provided comprehensive education in writing, mathematics, law, and specialized technical subjects. These educational institutions were crucial to maintaining the intellectual traditions that supported Hittite administrative and cultural achievements. Linguistic scholarship encompassed not only practical concerns about communication and administration, but also intellectual curiosity about language relationships and development. Hittite scribes worked with multiple languages and writing systems, developing sophisticated understanding of linguistic relationships and translation techniques. Their multilingual capabilities were essential to diplomatic activities and cultural exchanges that enriched their civilization. Scientific observation and systematic inquiry addressed practical problems in agriculture, medicine, astronomy, and engineering that required careful analysis of natural phenomena and systematic testing of proposed solutions. While their scientific methods differed from modern approaches, Hittite scholars demonstrated genuine intellectual curiosity and systematic thinking about natural processes. These scientific traditions contributed to technological innovations that provided practical advantages in various fields. Philosophical reflection and wisdom literature addressed fundamental questions about human existence, moral responsibility, and social organization that were crucial to maintaining cultural coherence and individual guidance. Hittite thinkers developed sophisticated approaches to ethical questions and social problems that reflected deep understanding of human nature and community requirements. These philosophical traditions provided intellectual frameworks that influenced legal, political, and religious developments. The preservation and transmission of intellectual traditions required sophisticated systems for copying texts, training scholars, and maintaining libraries that ensured important knowledge would survive political crises and social changes. The extensive archives discovered at Hittite sites demonstrate remarkable commitment to preserving intellectual achievements and ensuring their transmission to future generations. These preservation efforts were crucial to maintaining cultural continuity and administrative efficiency. International intellectual exchanges enriched Hittite scholarly traditions, while also spreading their intellectual contributions to neighbouring civilizations. The movement of scholars, the exchange of texts, and the adaptation of foreign intellectual traditions created dynamic processes of intellectual development that benefited all participants. These intellectual exchanges contributed to the cosmopolitan character that distinguished Hittite civilization and enhanced their cultural achievements. Here at Obscure Historiesa, we remain fascinated by the intellectual sophistication of ancient civilizations and the ways in which systematic scholarship can reveal the remarkable achievements of peoples whose intellectual traditions were nearly lost to historical memory. The Hittite example demonstrates that intellectual curiosity, systematic inquiry, and commitment to preserving knowledge have always been essential characteristics of successful civilizations, creating the intellectual foundations necessary for continued cultural and technological development. The legacy of Hittite civilization extends far beyond their immediate historical period and geographical boundaries, influencing subsequent developments in law, diplomacy, technology, and culture throughout the ancient world and into modern times. Their contributions to human civilization were so significant that the rediscovery of their achievements has fundamentally altered modern understanding of ancient history and cultural development. The study of Hittite civilization continues to yield new insights that demonstrate the complexity and sophistication of ancient societies, while also revealing connections between past and present that were previously unrecognized. Modern archaeological techniques and analytical methods continue to reveal new aspects of Hittite civilization that enhance our understanding of their remarkable achievements, while also raising new questions about their society and culture. Recent discoveries have provided fresh insights into their technological capabilities, social organization, and cultural practices that demonstrate even greater sophistication than previously recognized. These ongoing discoveries remind us that our understanding of ancient civilizations remains incomplete, and that continued research will undoubtedly reveal additional surprises about human cultural development. The influence of Hittite legal traditions on subsequent legal developments can be traced through various pathways that demonstrate the enduring significance of their innovations in jurisprudence and governmental organization. Their emphasis on constitutional limitations of royal power, systematic legal codes, and fair judicial procedures establish precedents that influence legal development throughout the ancient Near East and Mediterranean world. These legal innovations represent genuine contributions to human civilization that continue to influence modern legal thinking and institutional development. Diplomatic practices pioneered by Hittite rulers established precedents for international relations that continue to influence modern diplomatic traditions and international law. Their sophisticated treaty systems, marriage alliances, and peaceful conflict resolution mechanisms created frameworks for international cooperation that were remarkably advanced for their historical period. The survival of their diplomatic correspondence provides invaluable insights into ancient international relations, while also demonstrating the continuity of certain diplomatic practices across millennia. Technological innovations attributed to Hittite craftsmen and engineers influenced subsequent technological developments in ways that continue to affect modern manufacturing and engineering practices. Their contributions to metallurgy, architecture, and transportation systems provided foundations for technological traditions that evolve continuously from ancient times to the present day. The study of Hittite technology continues to provide insights that are relevant to contemporary engineering challenges and manufacturing processes. Cultural and artistic influences from Hittite civilization can be traced in subsequent artistic traditions throughout Anatolia, the Near East, and Mediterranean regions that demonstrate the enduring appeal and significance of their creative achievements. Elements of Hittite artistic style, religious iconography, and cultural practices were absorbed and transformed by later civilizations, creating cultural continuities that persisted long after their political collapse. These cultural legacies represent important contributions to human artistic and spiritual development. The linguistic significance of Hittite, as the earliest attested Indo-European language, continues to influence modern understanding of language development and the relationships between different language families. The decipherment of Hittite provided crucial evidence for theories about Indo-European linguistic development, while also contributing to methodological advances in historical linguistics. These linguistic contributions have enhanced our understanding of human communication and cultural development in ways that extend far beyond the immediate study of ancient languages. Educational and scholarly traditions developed within Hittite civilization influenced subsequent approaches to preserving and transmitting knowledge that continue to affect modern educational and scholarly practices. Their systematic approaches to documentation, training, and knowledge preservation established precedents that were adopted and adapted by later civilizations. These intellectual traditions represent important contributions to human learning and cultural development that continue to influence modern educational institutions and scholarly practices. Here at Obscure Historiesa, we recognize that the study of ancient civilizations like the Hittites provides essential perspectives on human cultural development and demonstrates the remarkable achievements that our ancestors accomplished despite the challenges they faced. The Hittite example reminds us that human civilization has always been characterized by innovation, creativity, and the persistent effort to create meaningful and prosperous societies that could provide security and opportunity for their members, while also contributing to the broader development of human culture and knowledge. The military innovations that distinguished Hittite warfare from that of their contemporaries represented revolutionary advances in Bronze Age combat that fundamentally altered the balance of power throughout the ancient Near East. Their mastery of chariot warfare, combined with sophisticated tactical doctrines and organizational systems, created military capabilities that enabled a relatively small highland kingdom to dominate territories spanning from the Black Sea to the Mediterranean. The development of these military advantages required not only technological innovation, but also systematic approaches to training, logistics, and strategic planning that were remarkably advanced for their historical period. Chariot technology represented the pinnacle of Hittite military innovation, incorporating design modifications that made their vehicles superior to those employed by contemporary armies. The crucial innovation of mounting the axle at the center rather than the rear of the chariot provided enhanced stability and maneuverability that allowed Hittite charioteers to carry additional crew members and equipment. This seemingly minor technical adjustment had profound tactical implications, enabling Hittite chariots to serve as mobile archery platforms and shock assault units that could break enemy formations through coordinated attacks. The training systems developed for chariot horses and their crews represented some of the most sophisticated military education programs of the ancient world. Detailed training manuals that have survived from Hittite archives describe systematic programs lasting many weeks that conditioned both horses and human crews for the demanding requirements of battlefield service. These training regimens included not only physical conditioning and tactical exercises, but also psychological preparation designed to ensure effective performance under the stress of combat conditions. Infantry formations employed by Hittite armies incorporated tactical innovations that maximized the effectiveness of their foot soldiers, while also providing flexible support for chariot operations. Archaeological evidence suggests that Hittite infantry units were equipped with standardized weapons and armor that reflected systematic approaches to military procurement and logistics. The coordination between different types of military units required sophisticated command and control systems that enabled complex battlefield maneuvers and strategic deployments. Siege warfare capabilities developed by Hittite military engineers enabled them to capture fortified cities that might otherwise have resisted their expansion efforts. Their techniques for constructing siege equipment, undermining defensive walls, and conducting systematic assaults on fortified positions demonstrated advanced understanding of military engineering principles. These siege capabilities were essential to their success in expanding beyond their original highland territories into regions defended by sophisticated urban fortifications. Logistics systems that supported Hittite military campaigns required remarkable organizational capabilities that could coordinate the movement and supply of large armies across difficult terrain and long distances. The administrative records that detail these logistics operations reveal sophisticated understanding of the practical requirements for maintaining military forces in the field over extended periods. These logistics capabilities were crucial to their success in conducting campaigns far from their homeland and maintaining control over extensive territories. Intelligence operations conducted by Hittite military commanders provided crucial information about enemy capabilities, intentions, and movements that enabled strategic and tactical advantages. References in military correspondence suggest that Hittite armies employed systematic reconnaissance, espionage networks, and battlefield intelligence gathering that gave them significant advantages over less well-informed opponents. These intelligence capabilities were integrated with diplomatic and commercial networks that provided comprehensive awareness of regional, political, and military developments. Military engineering projects undertaken by Hittite armies included not only siege equipment, but also field fortifications, bridge construction, and road building that facilitated military operations while also contributing to long-term strategic advantages. The integration of military and civilian engineering capabilities enabled Hittite forces to modify terrain to their advantage while also creating infrastructure that supported subsequent administrative and commercial activities. These engineering capabilities were essential to their success in operating effectively in diverse geographical environments. Weapon technology and metallurgy employed by Hittite armaments producers created military equipment that was often superior to that available to their enemies. Archaeological evidence reveals sophisticated techniques for producing bronze weapons, armor, and other military equipment that combined functional effectiveness with durability and reliability. The quality of Hittite military equipment contributed significantly to their battlefield effectiveness, while also reflecting the advanced metallurgical capabilities that characterized their civilization. Command structure and military organization within Hittite armies reflected sophisticated understanding of leadership requirements and organizational principles that enabled effective coordination of complex military operations. The role of royal family members as military commanders created personal connections between political authority and military leadership that strengthened loyalty and coordination. These command systems were essential to maintaining discipline and effectiveness in armies that included diverse ethnic groups and specialized units. Strategic planning and campaign coordination required analytical capabilities and institutional systems that could assess threats, allocate resources, and coordinate multiple simultaneous operations across extensive territories. The survival of strategic correspondence and planning documents reveals systematic approaches to military strategy that considered not only immediate tactical requirements, but also long-term political and economic implications of military actions. These strategic capabilities were crucial to their success in building and maintaining their extensive empire. Defensive systems and fortification design represented another area of Hittite military innovation that created security advantages while also demonstrating advanced engineering capabilities. The massive defensive walls and gate systems at major Hittite cities incorporated sophisticated design features that maximized defensive effectiveness while also serving symbolic functions that reinforce political authority. These fortification systems were integrated with broader urban planning that created defensible positions capable of withstanding extended sieges. Military recruitment and personnel management systems enabled Hittite rulers to mobilize substantial military forces while also maintaining the agricultural and commercial activities necessary for economic stability. The integration of military service with social and economic systems created incentives for service, while also ensuring that military obligations did not undermine civilian prosperity. These personnel systems were essential to maintaining the large military forces necessary for controlling their extensive territories. Training and professional development programs for military personnel created career pathways that attracted talented individuals while also ensuring that essential military skills were preserved and transmitted effectively. The integration of military careers with broader social and political systems provided opportunities for advancement that strengthened loyalty, while also ensuring that military leadership positions were filled by capable individuals. These professional development systems contributed to the consistently high quality of Hittite military performance. Battlefield tactics and combat doctrines developed by Hittite military commanders reflected systematic analysis of combat effectiveness and continuous adaptation to changing military technologies and enemy capabilities. The integration of different types of military units in coordinated operations required sophisticated tactical understanding and extensive training in combined arms operations. These tactical innovations were crucial to their success in defeating enemies who often possessed numerical advantages or defensive positions. Military diplomacy and alliance systems created force multipliers that enabled Hittite armies to achieve strategic objectives with reduced resource commitments, while also providing security guarantees that strengthened political relationships. The coordination of military operations with allied forces required diplomatic skills and institutional capabilities that extended far beyond purely military concerns. These alliance systems were essential to maintaining control over territories that were too extensive to be garrisoned entirely by Hittite forces. Post-conflict administration and occupation policies developed systematic approaches to integrating conquered territories, while also preventing rebellions and maintaining security. The balance between coercive control and cooperative governance required sophisticated understanding of political psychology and administrative capabilities. These occupation policies were crucial to converting military victories into lasting political control that contributed to imperial stability and prosperity. Here at Obscure Historiesa, we continue to be amazed by the military sophistication of ancient civilizations and the ways in which systematic analysis of archaeological evidence and textual records can reveal the remarkable strategic and tactical capabilities developed by ancient peoples. The Hittite example demonstrates that military innovation has always required not only technological advancement, but also sophisticated organizational systems and strategic thinking that enabled effective utilization of available resources and capabilities. The religious architecture and ceremonial complexes that dominated Hittite urban landscapes represented some of the most ambitious construction projects of the Bronze Age world, creating spiritual centers that served both religious and political functions, while also demonstrating remarkable engineering capabilities. These massive temple complexes required coordination of thousands of workers, sophisticated planning and design capabilities, and access to enormous quantities of raw materials and specialized craftsmen. The scale and sophistication of these religious buildings reflect the central importance of spiritual concerns in Hittite civilization, while also demonstrating their remarkable organizational and technical capabilities. Temple design and construction incorporated advanced architectural principles that created structures capable of withstanding the challenging seismic and climatic conditions of the Anatolian plateau, while also providing appropriate settings for elaborate religious ceremonies. The integration of defensive, residential, and ceremonial functions within unified architectural complexes required sophisticated urban planning that balanced practical requirements with symbolic and aesthetic considerations. These architectural achievements represented genuine innovations that influenced subsequent building traditions throughout the region. Sacred spaces and ritual areas within Hittite religious complexes were designed according to precise specifications that reflected theological requirements and ceremonial needs, while also incorporating practical considerations about crowd management and ritual logistics. The arrangement of altars, processional routes, and ceremonial chambers created environments that enhanced the spiritual impact of religious observances, while also accommodating the practical requirements of complex ceremonies involving hundreds of participants. These sacred spaces demonstrate sophisticated understanding of the relationships between physical environment and spiritual experience. Sculptural programs and decorative elements that adorned Hittite temples conveyed complex theological messages while also serving practical functions in protecting and beautifying architectural elements. The massive stone reliefs that decorated temple walls and ceremonial gateways required coordination between artists, theologians, and architects that demonstrates sophisticated project management capabilities. These sculptural programs created visual narratives that reinforced religious teachings, while also serving political functions that strengthened royal authority and imperial identity. Ritual equipment and ceremonial objects produced for Hittite. Religious observances represented masterworks of craftsmanship that combined functional requirements with aesthetic excellence and symbolic significance. Archaeological discoveries of ceremonial vessels, religious implements, and ritual furnishings reveal sophisticated understanding of the material requirements for effective religious practice. The quality and complexity of these ritual objects reflect the enormous resources that Hittite society devoted to religious activities and the high status accorded to religious craftsmen. Ceremonial calendars and festival cycles organized religious observances according to systematic schedules that coordinated spiritual activities with agricultural cycles, political events, and seasonal requirements. The complexity of these religious calendars required sophisticated administrative capabilities and extensive coordination between different institutions and communities. These ceremonial systems created shared rhythms of community life that strengthened social cohesion while also providing regular opportunities for collective religious expression. Priesthood organization and religious hierarchy created institutional frameworks for managing complex religious activities, while also providing career pathways that attracted talented individuals to religious service. The integration of religious offices with broader social and political systems ensured that spiritual leaders possessed the resources and authority necessary for effective religious leadership. These religious institutions played crucial roles in maintaining cultural continuity and providing guidance during periods of political and social change. Theological scholarship and religious literature developed sophisticated approaches to understanding divine relationships and ritual requirements that guided both personal devotion and state ceremonies. The survival of extensive religious texts reveals intellectual traditions that attempted to reconcile different theological perspectives while also providing practical guidance for religious practice. These theological achievements demonstrate the intellectual sophistication that characterized Hittite religious thought and its influence on broader cultural development. Mystery religions and esoteric practices provided alternative spiritual pathways that complemented official religious observances while also addressing individual spiritual needs that were not fully met by public ceremonies. Archaeological evidence suggests that Hittite religious life included both public and private dimensions that offered different types of spiritual experience and community connection. These diverse religious traditions created comprehensive spiritual systems that addressed the full range of human religious needs and aspirations. Religious education and spiritual formation programs ensured that essential religious knowledge and practices were transmitted effectively from one generation to the next, while also providing opportunities for individuals to develop deeper spiritual understanding. The integration of religious education with broader educational systems created comprehensive approaches to cultural transmission that preserved essential spiritual traditions while also encouraging continued theological development. These educational systems were crucial to maintaining religious continuity and spiritual vitality. Pilgrimage networks and sacred geography created regional connections that linked Hittite communities with important religious sites while also facilitating cultural exchanges and commercial relationships. The organization of pilgrimage activities required sophisticated logistical capabilities and institutional cooperation that demonstrated the practical importance of religious concerns. These pilgrimage systems strengthened imperial unity while also providing opportunities for spiritual renewal and community connection. Religious architecture and sacred landscapes were integrated with natural geographical features in ways that enhanced spiritual significance, while also demonstrating sophisticated understanding of environmental relationships. The placement of temples and ceremonial sites reflected careful attention to astronomical alignments, water sources, and topographical features that were believed to possess spiritual significance. These sacred landscapes created comprehensive religious environments that integrated human spiritual activities with natural processes and divine presence. Interfaith relationships and religious diplomacy provided frameworks for managing relationships with neighbouring peoples, while also facilitating cultural exchanges that enriched Hittite spiritual traditions. The incorporation of foreign religious elements into Hittite spiritual systems required sophisticated theological understanding and diplomatic sensitivity that balanced religious authenticity with political requirements. These interfaith relationships contributed to the cosmopolitan character that distinguished Hittite religious life and enhanced their cultural achievements. Prophetic traditions and divine communication systems provided mechanisms for receiving and interpreting divine guidance that influenced both personal decisions and state policies. The integration of prophetic insights with practical governance required sophisticated approaches to balancing spiritual guidance with practical requirements. These prophetic traditions demonstrate the central importance of divine relationships in Hittite decision-making and their influence on political and social development. Here at Obscure Historiesa, we remain fascinated by the religious sophistication of ancient civilizations and the ways in which spiritual concerns influenced all aspects of ancient life and culture. The Hittite example demonstrates that religious innovation and theological development have always been central to human civilization, creating spiritual foundations that supported remarkable cultural achievements while also providing meaning and purpose that transcended immediate material concerns and connected human communities with broader cosmic relationships and divine purposes. The administrative complexities that sustained Hittite governance across their vast territories required unprecedented innovations in bureaucratic organization and information management that enabled effective coordination between central authorities and distant provincial administrators. The survival of extensive correspondence networks reveals a civilization that had developed systematic approaches to governmental communication, resource allocation, and policy implementation that were remarkably sophisticated for the Bronze Age world. These administrative achievements were essential to maintaining political unity across diverse populations and challenging geographical conditions, while also ensuring that imperial resources were utilized effectively for both defensive and developmental purposes. Provincial administration systems developed by Hittite rulers created hierarchical structures that balanced central control with local autonomy in ways that accommodated regional variations while maintaining imperial coherence. The appointment of governors who combined Hittite noble backgrounds with local knowledge and connections enabled effective governance that respected traditional customs while also implementing imperial policies. These administrative arrangements required constant communication and coordination that demonstrates the sophisticated bureaucratic capabilities that characterized mature Hittite governmental institutions. Record-keeping systems and archival practices preserved essential governmental information while also creating institutional memory that enabled continuity during leadership transitions and policy changes. The extensive archives discovered at Hittite administrative centers reveal systematic approaches to documentation that covered everything from tax collection records to diplomatic correspondence and military planning documents. These archival systems were crucial to maintaining governmental efficiency and ensuring that important precedents and procedures were preserved for future reference and application. Taxation policies and revenue generation methods developed sophisticated approaches to funding governmental activities, while also maintaining economic incentives that encouraged productive activities and commercial development. The complexity of Hittite tax systems required detailed knowledge of local economic conditions and careful balancing of imperial requirements with regional capabilities and needs. These fiscal policies were essential to generating the resources necessary for military defense, infrastructure development, and administrative operations, while also maintaining the economic prosperity that supported imperial stability. Legal administration and judicial systems created frameworks for maintaining social order and resolving disputes that reflected sophisticated understanding of jurisprudence and community relations. The integration of traditional legal customs with imperial legal codes required careful navigation of competing authorities and legal traditions, while also ensuring that justice was administered fairly and consistently. These judicial systems were crucial to maintaining social cohesion and political legitimacy throughout the diverse territories that comprised the Hittite Empire. Communication networks and information systems enabled rapid transmission of important information across vast distances, while also providing mechanisms for coordinating complex governmental activities and military operations. The development of standardized communication protocols and messenger services required substantial infrastructure investments and organizational capabilities that demonstrated the high priority placed on effective information management. These communication systems were essential to maintaining governmental effectiveness and ensuring that central authorities remained informed about developments throughout their territories. Personnel management and career development programs created systematic approaches to recruiting, training, and advancing governmental officials that ensured essential administrative capabilities were maintained, while also providing opportunities for talented individuals to contribute to imperial governance. The integration of merit-based advancement with traditional social hierarchies required careful balancing of competing principles and interests, while also ensuring that governmental positions were filled by capable individuals. These personnel systems were crucial to maintaining administrative quality and institutional continuity across generations of imperial development. Policy development and implementation procedures created systematic approaches to addressing governmental challenges, while also ensuring that new policies were coordinated effectively across different administrative levels and geographical regions. The survival of policy documents and implementation guidelines reveals sophisticated understanding of the practical requirements for translating governmental decisions into effective action. These policy systems were essential to ensuring that imperial governance remained responsive to changing circumstances, while also maintaining consistency and coherence in governmental operations. Inter-agency coordination and institutional cooperation enabled effective collaboration between different governmental departments and administrative functions that were essential to addressing complex challenges requiring multiple types of expertise and resources. The integration of military, civilian, and religious administrative systems required sophisticated organizational understanding and institutional design that balanced specialized functions with unified direction. These coordination systems were crucial to maximizing governmental effectiveness, while also preventing conflicts and inefficiencies that could undermine imperial stability. Quality control and performance monitoring systems ensured that governmental services met established standards, while also providing mechanisms for identifying and addressing administrative problems before they could undermine imperial effectiveness. The development of systematic evaluation procedures and corrective mechanisms demonstrates sophisticated understanding of organizational management and institutional improvement. These quality control systems were essential to maintaining public confidence in governmental institutions, while also ensuring that administrative capabilities continued to meet the evolving requirements of imperial governance. Resource allocation and budget management procedures created systematic approaches to distributing imperial resources among competing priorities, while also ensuring that essential governmental functions received adequate funding and support. The complexity of these resource management systems required sophisticated analytical capabilities and institutional coordination that could balance immediate needs with long-term strategic requirements. These budget systems were essential to maximizing the effectiveness of imperial resources, while also maintaining the financial stability necessary for sustained governmental operations. Emergency response and crisis management capabilities enabled Hittite administrators to respond effectively to natural disasters, military threats, and other challenges that required rapid mobilization of resources and coordinated governmental action. The development of contingency planning procedures and emergency response protocols demonstrates sophisticated understanding of crisis management and institutional resilience. These emergency capabilities were crucial to maintaining imperial stability during periods of stress, while also ensuring that governmental institutions could continue functioning effectively despite temporary disruptions. Institutional reform and administrative adaptation processes enabled Hittite governmental systems to evolve and improve over time, while also maintaining the stability and continuity necessary for effective imperial governance. The ability to modify administrative procedures and organizational structures in response to changing circumstances required sophisticated institutional design and change management capabilities. These reform processes were essential to ensuring that imperial governance remained effective despite evolving challenges and opportunities. Inter-imperial relations and diplomatic administration required specialized capabilities for managing relationships with foreign powers, while also coordinating imperial foreign policy with domestic governmental activities. The integration of diplomatic functions with broader imperial administration required sophisticated understanding of both international relations and domestic political requirements. These diplomatic capabilities were essential to maintaining imperial security and prosperity, while also managing the complex relationships that characterize the ancient Near Eastern political system. Knowledge management and institutional learning systems enabled Hittite administrators to preserve and utilize accumulated governmental experience, while also facilitating the development of improved administrative practices and procedures. The systematic documentation of administrative precedents and procedural innovations demonstrates sophisticated understanding of organizational learning and institutional development. These knowledge systems were crucial to maintaining administrative effectiveness while also enabling continuous improvement in governmental capabilities and performance. Training programs and professional development opportunities ensured that governmental officials possessed the skills and knowledge necessary for effective administrative performance, while also providing career advancement opportunities that attracted talented individuals to imperial service. The integration of practical training with broader educational development created comprehensive approaches to administrative education that prepared officials for the complex requirements of imperial governance. These training systems were essential to maintaining the human resource capabilities that enabled sophisticated imperial administration. Here at Obscure Historiesa, we continue to discover that ancient governmental systems were often far more sophisticated than popular assumptions might suggest, with administrative innovations and institutional capabilities that enabled remarkable achievements in organizing and governing complex societies across vast territories and diverse populations. The environmental challenges that shaped Hittite agricultural development required innovative approaches to land management, water conservation, and crop production that enabled sustainable agriculture in the demanding highland conditions of central Anatolia. The successful adaptation to these challenging environmental conditions demonstrates remarkable agricultural innovation and systematic understanding of ecological relationships that enabled the Hittites to support large populations and complex urban civilizations despite geographical limitations. These agricultural achievements were fundamental to all other aspects of Hittite civilization, providing the economic foundations that supported their military, administrative, and cultural accomplishments. Soil management techniques developed by Hittite farmers address the specific challenges of highland agriculture, while also maintaining long-term soil fertility and productivity that enabled sustained agricultural output across multiple generations. Archaeological evidence reveals sophisticated understanding of soil composition, drainage requirements, and nutrient management that enabled productive cultivation in areas that might otherwise have been marginal for agriculture. These soil management practices were essential to supporting the agricultural surpluses that enabled urbanization and specialization throughout Hittite territory. Water conservation and irrigation systems created sophisticated approaches to managing the irregular rainfall patterns and seasonal water availability that characterize the Anatolian highland environment. The development of storage reservoirs, distribution networks, and drainage systems required advanced engineering capabilities and systematic understanding of hydraulic principles. These water management systems were crucial to ensuring reliable agricultural production while also supporting the large urban populations that characterized major Hittite centers. Crop selection and agricultural diversification strategies enabled Hittite farmers to maximize agricultural productivity while also reducing the risks associated with crop failures and environmental variations. The cultivation of multiple crop varieties adapted to different soil conditions and climatic requirements created agricultural systems that were both productive and resilient. These diversification strategies were essential to maintaining food security and economic stability, despite the environmental uncertainties that characterized highland agriculture. Seasonal labor organization and agricultural workforce management created systematic approaches to coordinating the intensive labor requirements of highland agriculture, while also ensuring that agricultural activities were integrated effectively with other economic and social activities. The coordination of planting, cultivation, and harvest activities required sophisticated understanding of seasonal cycles and labor management that maximized agricultural efficiency. These labor systems were crucial to achieving the agricultural productivity that supported Hittite urban civilization and imperial expansion. Storage and preservation techniques enabled Hittite communities to maintain food security despite seasonal variations in agricultural production and the periodic crop failures that could result from adverse weather conditions. The development of granaries, preservation methods, and distribution systems created food security that was essential to supporting large populations and maintaining social stability. These storage systems were crucial to the economic foundations that enabled Hittite military campaigns and territorial expansion. Animal husbandry and pastoral management integrated livestock production with agricultural activities in ways that maximized the utilization of available resources, while also providing essential proteins, materials, and transportation capabilities. The coordination of pastoral and agricultural activities required sophisticated understanding of land use patterns and seasonal cycles that optimized resource utilization. These integrated agricultural systems were essential to the economic diversity that characterized Hittite civilization and contributed to their overall prosperity and stability. Agricultural technology and tool development created implements and techniques that enhanced agricultural productivity while also reducing the labor requirements associated with highland farming. Archaeological evidence reveals sophisticated agricultural tools and processing equipment that demonstrates advanced understanding of mechanical principles and materials science. These technological innovations were crucial to achieving the agricultural efficiency that enabled Hittite farmers to produce surpluses sufficient to support urban populations and specialized activities. Market systems and agricultural commerce created economic networks that connected agricultural producers with urban consumers, while also providing opportunities for regional specialization and trade in agricultural products. The development of standardized measures, quality standards, and commercial relationships enabled efficient distribution of agricultural goods throughout Hittite territory. These market systems were essential to the economic integration that characterized mature Hittite civilization and contributed to overall imperial prosperity. Environmental monitoring and agricultural planning systems enabled Hittite farmers and administrators to anticipate and respond effectively to environmental variations and potential agricultural challenges. The development of systematic approaches to weather observation, crop monitoring, and resource planning demonstrates sophisticated understanding of agricultural management and environmental relationships. These planning systems were crucial to maintaining agricultural stability and food security, despite the environmental uncertainties that characterize their highland environment. Land tenure systems and property management created legal and social frameworks that provided security for agricultural investments, while also ensuring that land resources were utilized effectively for community benefit. The balance between individual property rights and community resource management required sophisticated legal and administrative systems that accommodated diverse interests and needs. These land tenure systems were essential to maintaining agricultural productivity and social stability throughout Hittite territory. Agricultural research and innovation processes enabled continuous improvement in farming techniques and crop varieties that enhanced productivity and adapted agricultural systems to changing environmental and economic conditions. The systematic experimentation with different crops, techniques, and technologies demonstrates sophisticated approaches to agricultural development and innovation. These research activities were crucial to maintaining the agricultural advantages that supported Hittite prosperity and competitive advantages. Regional specialization and agricultural trade networks created economic relationships that enabled different areas to focus on producing crops and products best suited to their local conditions, while also accessing goods produced elsewhere. The development of these specialized production systems required coordination and communication that demonstrated sophisticated understanding of comparative advantage and economic efficiency. These specialization systems were essential to maximizing agricultural productivity and creating the economic surpluses that supported imperial expansion and cultural development. Disaster response and agricultural resilience systems enabled Hittite communities to recover from crop failures, natural disasters, and other disruptions that could threaten food security and economic stability. The development of emergency reserves, mutual aid systems, and recovery procedures demonstrates sophisticated understanding of risk management and community resilience. These disaster response systems were crucial to maintaining social stability and economic continuity despite the environmental challenges and uncertainties that characterize their highland environment. Agricultural education and knowledge transmission systems ensured that essential farming techniques and environmental knowledge were passed effectively from one generation to the next, while also facilitating the adoption of new techniques and innovations. The integration of practical agricultural training with broader educational systems created comprehensive approaches to agricultural development that maintained traditional knowledge while also encouraging continued innovation. These educational systems were crucial to preserving and developing the agricultural capabilities that supported Hittite civilization across multiple generations. Sustainable resource management practices addressed the long-term requirements for maintaining agricultural productivity while also preserving environmental resources for future generations. The development of conservation practices, resource rotation systems, and environmental protection measures demonstrate sophisticated understanding of ecological relationships and sustainability principles. These sustainable practices were essential to maintaining the environmental foundations that supported Hittite agricultural prosperity and overall civilizational success. Here at Obscure Historiesa, we remain impressed by the agricultural sophistication of ancient civilizations and the ways in which careful adaptation to environmental conditions enabled remarkable achievements in food production and resource management that supported complex urban societies and imperial expansion despite challenging geographical and climatic conditions. The maritime connections that linked Hittite civilization to distant regions through trade networks, diplomatic relationships, and cultural exchanges demonstrate that their influence extended far beyond their immediate geographical boundaries into the broader Mediterranean and Near Eastern worlds. Despite their primarily inland location, the Hittites developed sophisticated understanding of maritime commerce and naval affairs that enabled them to participate effectively in the complex international relationships that characterized the Bronze Age Eastern Mediterranean. These maritime connections were crucial to their economic prosperity, diplomatic influence, and cultural development throughout their imperial period. Coastal territories and port cities under Hittite control provided essential access to maritime trade routes, while also creating strategic positions that enabled them to influence Mediterranean commerce and naval activities. The administration of these coastal regions required sophisticated understanding of maritime affairs and the unique challenges associated with governing communities whose economic and social lives were closely connected to sea-based activities. These coastal territories were essential to Hittite participation in the broader Mediterranean economic and political systems. Naval capabilities and maritime military forces enabled Hittite rulers to project power beyond their traditional land-based territories, while also protecting their maritime interests and coastal territories from seaborne threats. The development of naval forces required substantial investments in shipbuilding technology, naval training programs, and maritime logistics that demonstrated their commitment to maintaining influence in maritime affairs. These naval capabilities were crucial to defending their extended territories and maintaining their position among the major powers of the Eastern Mediterranean. International shipping and commercial maritime networks connected Hittite merchants and products to markets throughout the Mediterranean world, while also bringing foreign goods, technologies, and cultural influences into their homeland. The participation in these maritime trade networks required sophisticated understanding of international commerce, navigation techniques, and the diplomatic relationships necessary for maintaining commercial access to distant markets. These maritime commercial relationships were essential to the economic prosperity that supported Hittite military and cultural achievements. Diplomatic maritime missions and naval diplomacy enabled Hittite rulers to maintain relationships with island kingdoms and coastal powers that were essential to their broader strategic objectives and international influence. The conduct of diplomatic activities across maritime distances required specialized capabilities and institutional arrangements that could manage the unique challenges associated with sea-based diplomatic communication. These maritime diplomatic relationships were crucial to maintaining the international alliances that supported Hittite security and prosperity. Technological exchanges and maritime innovation networks facilitated the transfer of shipbuilding techniques, navigation technologies, and maritime knowledge that enhanced Hittite capabilities, while also contributing to broader technological development throughout the Eastern Mediterranean. The participation in these technological networks required openness to foreign innovations and the technical capabilities necessary for adapting maritime technologies to their specific requirements. These technological exchanges were essential to maintaining competitive advantages in maritime affairs and international commerce. Cultural influences and maritime connections brought artistic styles, religious concepts, and intellectual traditions from distant regions into Hittite civilization, while also spreading their own cultural achievements to far-flung communities throughout the Mediterranean world. These cultural exchanges enriched Hittite civilization while also contributing to the cosmopolitan character that distinguished their mature imperial culture. The maritime cultural connections were crucial to the intellectual and artistic achievements that characterized peak Hittite civilization. Strategic maritime positions and naval bases enabled Hittite forces to maintain influence over crucial sea routes and maritime choke points that were essential to Mediterranean commerce and strategic relationships. The establishment and maintenance of these strategic positions required substantial resource commitments and sophisticated logistical capabilities that demonstrated the importance they placed on maritime affairs. These strategic maritime positions were crucial to their overall strategic posture and international influence. Maritime intelligence and information networks provided crucial knowledge about foreign naval capabilities, commercial activities, and political developments that affected their interests throughout the Mediterranean region. The development of these intelligence capabilities required sophisticated organizational systems and international connections that enabled effective information gathering and analysis. These maritime intelligence networks were essential to maintaining strategic awareness and effective decision-making in maritime affairs. Seasonal maritime activities and cyclical trade patterns required sophisticated planning and coordination that accommodated the natural rhythms of Mediterranean commerce while also maximizing the benefits of seasonal trading opportunities. The integration of maritime activities with land-based economic and military activities required comprehensive understanding of both maritime and terrestrial operational requirements. These seasonal maritime systems were crucial to optimizing their participation in international commerce and maintaining economic prosperity. Maritime legal systems and commercial law developed specialized approaches to addressing the unique legal challenges associated with sea-based commerce, naval operations, and international maritime relationships. The creation of legal frameworks that could operate effectively across international boundaries and diverse legal traditions required sophisticated jurisprudence and diplomatic capabilities. These maritime legal systems were essential to maintaining the commercial relationships and international cooperation that supported their maritime interests. International maritime alliances and cooperative agreements enabled Hittite naval forces to coordinate effectively with allied fleets, while also creating mutual defense arrangements that enhanced security for all participants. The development of these maritime alliances required diplomatic skills and institutional capabilities that could manage complex multilateral relationships across maritime distances. These maritime alliances were crucial to maintaining the collective security arrangements that protected their maritime interests and commercial activities. Maritime resource management and oceanic exploitation enabled Hittite communities to utilize marine resources while also maintaining sustainable relationships with maritime environments that supported long-term economic activities. The development of sustainable maritime practices required understanding of marine ecology and resource management principles that balanced immediate economic benefits with long-term environmental sustainability. These maritime resource management practices were essential to maintaining the environmental foundations that supported their maritime economic activities. Long-distance maritime exploration and discovery activities extended Hittite knowledge of distant regions while also creating opportunities for new trade relationships and territorial expansion. The conduct of exploration activities required advanced navigation capabilities, substantial resource commitments, and institutional support for long-term maritime ventures. These exploration activities were crucial to expanding their geographical knowledge and creating new opportunities for economic and political development. Maritime cultural preservation and knowledge transmission systems ensured that essential maritime skills and knowledge were maintained and developed across generations of maritime activity. The integration of maritime knowledge with broader educational and cultural systems created comprehensive approaches to preserving and advancing their maritime capabilities. These knowledge preservation systems were crucial to maintaining the maritime expertise that enabled their continued participation in Mediterranean affairs and international commerce. Here at Obscure Historiesa, we continue to discover that ancient civilizations developed remarkably sophisticated approaches to maritime affairs and international relationships that enabled them to participate effectively in the complex global systems that characterize the ancient world, demonstrating that international cooperation and maritime commerce have always been essential elements of successful civilizations. The archaeological methods that enabled the rediscovery of Hittite civilization represent revolutionary advances in scholarly techniques and analytical approaches that fundamentally transformed our understanding of ancient history and cultural development. The painstaking excavation work conducted at sites throughout Turkey and Syria required decades of systematic investigation, careful documentation, and innovative analytical methods that gradually assembled the fragmentary evidence into a coherent picture of this remarkable civilization. These archaeological achievements demonstrate the power of modern scientific methods to recover lost chapters of human history, while also establishing methodological precedents that continue to influence archaeological practice throughout the world. Excavation techniques developed specifically for Hittite sites required adaptation of standard archaeological methods to address the unique challenges presented by Bronze Age urban centers and the complex stratigraphy that resulted from centuries of continuous occupation and rebuilding. The massive scale of sites like Hattusa demanded innovative approaches to site management, documentation, and analysis that could handle the enormous quantities of material evidence while maintaining the precision necessary for scientific interpretation. These excavation innovations were crucial to recovering the detailed information that enabled comprehensive reconstruction of Hittite civilization and culture. Conservation methods and artifact preservation techniques developed for Hittite materials address the specific challenges associated with preserving cuneiform tablets, architectural remains, and material artifacts that had survived for millennia under challenging environmental conditions. The development of specialized conservation procedures enabled scholars to preserve fragile materials, while also making them accessible for detailed study and analysis. These conservation innovations were essential to ensuring that recovered materials could contribute effectively to ongoing research and public education about Hittite achievements. Interdisciplinary collaboration between archaeologists, linguists, historians, and specialists in various technical fields created comprehensive research programs that combined multiple analytical approaches to maximize the insights that could be extracted from available evidence. The integration of different scholarly perspectives and methodological approaches enabled more complete understanding of Hittite civilization than any single discipline could have achieved independently. These collaborative research methods were crucial to developing the comprehensive knowledge that characterizes modern Hittite studies. Dating techniques and chronological analysis methods enabled scholars to establish precise temporal frameworks for Hittite historical development, while also correlating their chronology with that of contemporary civilizations throughout the ancient Near East. The application of radiocarbon dating, ceramic analysis, and stratigraphic correlation created reliable chronological foundations that enabled accurate historical reconstruction. These chronological methods were essential to understanding the development and relationships of Hittite civilization within broader ancient Near Eastern contexts. Digital documentation and database management systems revolutionized the organization and analysis of the vast quantities of information recovered from Hittite archaeological sites, while also enabling international collaboration and data sharing among researchers worldwide. The development of comprehensive digital archives and analytical databases created research tools that enhanced scholarly productivity, while also ensuring that important information remained accessible for future research. These digital innovations were crucial to managing the complexity of modern Hittite research and facilitating continued scholarly advancement. Scientific analysis techniques including chemical composition studies, metallurgical analysis, and materials science investigations revealed detailed information about Hittite technological capabilities and manufacturing processes that would have been invisible to earlier generations of scholars. These analytical methods enabled precise understanding of ancient technologies, while also providing insights into trade relationships and cultural exchanges. The application of modern scientific techniques was essential to reconstructing the technical achievements that distinguished Hittite civilization. Comparative analysis methods that examined Hittite materials in relation to contemporary civilizations throughout the ancient Near East and Mediterranean regions enabled scholars to understand their achievements within broader cultural and historical contexts. These comparative approaches revealed the distinctive characteristics of Hittite civilization, while also illuminating the cultural exchanges and international relationships that influenced their development. Comparative analysis was crucial to understanding both the uniqueness and the broader significance of Hittite achievements. Reconstruction techniques and experimental archaeology programs attempted to recreate ancient processes and technologies based on archaeological evidence, while also testing hypotheses about ancient capabilities and methods. These experimental approaches provided practical insights into ancient techniques, while also validating or challenging scholarly interpretations of archaeological evidence. Experimental reconstruction was essential to developing realistic understanding of ancient capabilities and achievements. Public archaeology programs and community engagement initiatives ensured that the discoveries about Hittite civilization were shared effectively with broader audiences, while also involving local communities in research and preservation activities. These public outreach efforts created popular awareness of Hittite achievements, while also building support for continued research and site preservation. Public engagement was crucial to ensuring that scholarly discoveries contributed to broader cultural understanding and appreciation. International together scholars from different countries and institutions, cooperation and collaborative research projects brought to address research questions that required resources and expertise beyond what any single institution could provide. These collaborative efforts created research networks that enhanced scholarly productivity, while also fostering international understanding and cooperation. International collaboration was essential to achieving the comprehensive understanding that characterizes modern Hittite scholarship. Technological innovation and methodological development continued to create new analytical capabilities that enabled increasingly sophisticated approaches to studying ancient civilizations and extracting information from archaeological materials. The ongoing development of new technologies and methods ensured that Hittite research remained at the forefront of archaeological science, while also creating tools that benefited broader archaeological practice. Technological innovation was crucial to maintaining the momentum of discovery that continues to enhance our understanding of ancient civilizations. Educational programs and training initiatives ensured that essential archaeological skills and research methods were transmitted effectively to new generations of scholars, while also creating opportunities for international exchange and collaboration. These educational efforts created the human resources necessary for continued research, while also fostering international cooperation in archaeological scholarship. Educational programs were essential to maintaining the scholarly capabilities that enable continued advancement in understanding ancient civilizations. Publication and dissemination efforts ensured that research results were shared effectively with both scholarly and popular audiences, while also creating permanent records of discoveries and interpretations that could be utilized by future researchers. The development of comprehensive publication programs created accessible resources that facilitated continued research, while also informing broader public understanding. Publication efforts were crucial to ensuring that archaeological discoveries contributed effectively to ongoing scholarly advancement and public education. Site preservation and heritage management programs addressed the challenges of protecting important archaeological sites, while also making them accessible for research and public education purposes. These preservation efforts required balancing research needs with conservation requirements, while also addressing the practical challenges of site management in modern political and economic contexts. Site preservation was essential to ensuring that important archaeological resources remained available for future research and public benefit. Research funding and institutional support systems created the financial and organizational foundations necessary for conducting long-term archaeological research projects, while also ensuring that essential resources remained available for continued investigation. The development of sustainable funding mechanisms enabled comprehensive research programs that could address complex research questions requiring extended investigation periods. Research funding was crucial to maintaining the institutional capabilities that enable continued advancement in archaeological understanding. Here at Obscure Historiesa, we recognize that the rediscovery of lost civilizations like the Hittites represents one of archaeology's greatest achievements, demonstrating the power of systematic scientific investigation to recover forgotten chapters of human history and revealing the remarkable sophistication of ancient peoples whose achievements were nearly lost to time. The linguistic innovations that distinguished Hittite contributions to human communication encompass not only their role as the earliest documented Indo-European language, but also their sophisticated approaches to multilingual administration and cultural integration that enabled effective governance of diverse populations. The complexity of their linguistic environment, which included speakers of numerous unrelated languages, required administrative and cultural solutions that demonstrated remarkable sophistication in managing multilingual societies. These linguistic achievements were fundamental to their success in building and maintaining a unified empire that incorporated diverse ethnic and cultural groups while preserving important elements of local traditions and identities. Translation systems and multilingual documentation practices developed sophisticated approaches to managing governmental and commercial activities that required communication across multiple language communities while maintaining accuracy and cultural sensitivity. The survival of texts in multiple languages and writing systems demonstrates institutional capabilities that could coordinate complex multilingual operations while ensuring that important information was accessible to diverse audiences. These translation systems were essential to the administrative efficiency that enabled effective imperial governance across linguistically diverse territories. Writing system adaptations and script modifications enabled Hittite scribes to represent their language accurately using cuneiform writing that had originally been developed for entirely different linguistic structures and phonological systems. The successful adaptation of Mesopotamian cuneiform to Indo-European linguistic requirements required sophisticated understanding of both writing systems and linguistic principles that enabled effective written communication. These writing innovations were crucial to developing the administrative and cultural documentation that preserved their remarkable achievements. Educational programs and scribal training systems created comprehensive approaches to multilingual education that ensured essential communication skills were developed and maintained across generations of administrators, merchants, and cultural specialists. The integration of linguistic training with broader educational programs created institutional capabilities that could manage the complex communication requirements of imperial administration and international relations. These educational systems were essential to maintaining the linguistic capabilities that enabled their sophisticated governmental and commercial operations. Legal terminology and administrative vocabulary development created specialized linguistic resources that enabled precise communication about complex governmental, legal, and commercial matters, while also facilitating translation and interpretation between different linguistic communities. The development of standardized terminology and systematic vocabulary enabled consistent communication across diverse linguistic environments while maintaining precision in technical and administrative contexts. These terminological innovations were crucial to the legal and administrative efficiency that characterized mature Hittite governmental institutions. Literary traditions and cultural expression encompass both original compositions in the Hittite language and sophisticated adaptations of literary works from neighbouring civilizations that enrich their cultural heritage while preserving important texts for future generations. The creation of distinctive literary traditions that incorporated diverse cultural influences while maintaining unique Hittite characteristics demonstrates sophisticated approaches to cultural development and artistic expression. These literary achievements were essential to the cultural sophistication that distinguished Hittite civilization and contributed to their lasting influence. Diplomatic language and international communication protocols developed specialized approaches to cross-cultural communication that enabled effective diplomatic relationships while respecting cultural sensitivities and linguistic preferences of foreign partners. The survival of diplomatic correspondence in multiple languages demonstrates institutional capabilities that could manage complex international relationships while maintaining effective communication across linguistic and cultural boundaries. These diplomatic communication systems were crucial to the international relationships that supported Hittite security and prosperity. Commercial terminology and trade language innovations created linguistic resources that facilitated international commerce while also enabling precise communication about complex commercial relationships and contractual arrangements. The development of standardized commercial vocabulary and systematic approaches to multilingual business communication enabled participation in extensive international trade networks that were essential to economic prosperity. These commercial linguistic innovations were crucial to the economic relationships that supported imperial expansion and cultural development. Religious language and ceremonial terminology addressed the complex linguistic requirements associated with multilingual religious practices that incorporated diverse theological traditions while maintaining cultural authenticity and spiritual effectiveness. The integration of religious terminology from multiple linguistic traditions required sophisticated theological and linguistic understanding that balanced religious requirements with practical communication needs. These religious linguistic systems were essential to the spiritual unity that supported social cohesion throughout diverse imperial territories. Here at Obscure Historiesa, we've witnessed how the Hittites transformed from forgotten shadows in ancient texts to one of Bronze Age civilization's most remarkable powers. Their story reminds us that human achievement has always transcended the boundaries we imagine, creating sophisticated societies whose innovations continue to influence our world today. The next time you encounter references to constitutional monarchy, international treaties, or advanced metallurgy, remember that these concepts were pioneered by a people who vanished so completely that scholars once questioned their very existence.